Three, Zach.
So welcome to the joint meeting of the City Council and the Subcommittee on Community Resources. Both bodies are convening here today.
This meeting is being recorded.
To get updates from the mayor on our Citrus Main Street project. And I'm going to hand it over to, yes, we're going to do a roll call. Right, let's do the roll call first of just full council. So Sydney, would you call the names of the full council? Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Robbins.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Here.
Councilor Nabad.
Here.
Councilor Clemmer.
Here.
Councilor Loisel.
Present.
Councilor Dubs.
Here.
Councilor Davis.
Here.
Councilor Stratton.
Here.
And Council President Maori.
Here. Okay, so full council is here and has a quorum. And we'll go over to Chair Perry.
Yeah, so we're just going to call the Community Resources Committee to order. So Sydney, if you take the roll call.
Councilor Perry.
Still here.
Councilor Nabad.
Present.
Councilor Loisel.
Here.
And Councilor Davis.
Here.
Look at that, we have a full house. So I just want to welcome everybody to Community Resources. It's a full house here, which is nice. For folks who don't know, this is one of the 4 subcommittees of City Council. And for the last few years, Community Resources has kind of been a place where the community can come and learn and engage. So I really like doing this work. And since I don't get a chance to talk with the full body, I'm just going to give a little background before we go into public comment. This term, we've really tried to be, and the terms before, be proactive. We've presented information on local farming resources. So we had Grow Foods here, Abundance Farm. We've also done a little bit of information diving on the historic Northampton. We've had the Ruggles Center. So since we have so many new people here, I suggest you go and check out some of the recorded community resources meetings, because you can find a lot of great resources here. And a lot of this is because we believe that having a space for us to talk positively and upliftingly about what we have here in the city is important. This subcommittee is different because we don't often get assigned a lot of work, hence why I've been trying to be proactive in gathering up work. And so for this, what we're going to do here, and this is the first in a series, is that we felt that having updates on Picture Main Street would be nice to be nestled here. So this is not the only meeting on this project. If you looked at the agenda, we are really focusing on accessibility here in Picture Main Street project, as well as an update on some of the test pits, which I felt like could have a better name for the thing that it was for. But I talked to our council president and the mayor, and so we're going to try and put these updates in a really focused way. So there'll be updates on things like how we're going to deal with businesses during Picture Main Street. We're going to have updates about how emergency service accessibility is going to work under Picture Main Street, as well as financial updates and all those things. So I want to say that to let everyone know that you will have a chance to ask your questions, to engage with this body and the city council about those ideas in future meetings. But right now, before I open up public comment, I would really like to respect everyone's time here and get this information out. And so try and stay focused, not about the Picture Main Street project itself, but really about what is before us. Again, this is your time to speak, but I hope we can all be respectful of our time and come at this as a way to learn and get more information. Also, if there are questions that you ask that you don't feel are answered, we will be taking notes and we'll work together and try and do an update from community resources about the answers to those questions having to do with the things we're talking about today. Again, that's a lot of information to talk about, but I'm so excited to have everyone here. So with that being said, I am ready to open up things for public comment. So if you guys raise your hands, yeah, I'm going to start in the room with Alex Bowman.
I will skip for now.
Thank you. I was thinking that a lot of people, after hearing my intro, would decide to wait till when their piece comes up in another meeting. So with that being said, I've got Frederick Zimmer. Let's get you unmuted. All right, I asked you, Fred, to unmute. Can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Fred Zimnock. I live on Pomeroy Terrace, which is a residential street in the historic district of Ward 3. Constructing Picture Main Street will require replacing stormwater drainage system under Main Street. This drainage system takes stormwater and channels it to the stormwater pumping station on Huckenham Road, where it is pumped into the Connecticut River when the stormwater cannot naturally flow into the river. This system keeps downtown from flooding during severe events. At the same time, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection is updating the Stormwater Handbook to reflect today's reality. Storms are becoming more frequent and more intense. The updated guidance calls for using the latest NOAA Atlas 14 plus climate change data so designs can better account for the heavier rainfall from climate change. So the question is, how will Project Picture Main Street incorporate the updated climate data into its design? In a public meeting at the beginning of PMS design, the former DOT project manager, Stephanie Upson, said the first goal of PMS is to improve safety for all on Main Street. She adds that the crash data on Main Street shows about 1 crash per week. The city's FAQ says Main Street is dangerous, which is why MassDOT has prioritized this project and is making such a significant effort for our city. Yet I have not heard or read that the design will reduce accidents to maybe 1 crash every 2 weeks, 1 crash every 3 weeks, or longer. So I ask, what can the community expect for the real safety improvement on Main Street after PMS is completed? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we continue, I think that I had missed a couple things that we're going to talk about. So just so we get it all out there, we are going to talk about stormwater in an eventual meeting. We'll talk about the DPW. We'll talk about bicycles and safety. I would really encourage folks to focus their questions on things that might be productive to help us guide this discussion here. But we will continue to write down your feelings and your comments. But again, I just want to have us understand that we really want to be focused for our time here on this. But I really am excited for everyone to have a chance to speak, so no one will be turned away. That being said, Bob McGovern.
Good evening. I'm not here to make friends tonight, and I probably make a few enemies, but the Tool Group, why do we have to go to Boston to get a few people to come to our city to tell us what to do with our traffic? Wayne Fiden's RFP included mandatory bicycle lanes for them to get the contract. That's total BS. Narkowitz tried it. It failed. He had the nerve and the guts to pull the plug on it. This administration, neither one. We used to have city councilors that were people, not politicians. And I'm not speaking to everyone. I don't know everyone. But being led around by the mayor's office by your nose about Picture Main Street, plowing, where's the snow going? Deliveries, where's parking places? And the mayor has said, I quote, retail is dead. What? You did.
Focus over here
Uh, uh,
in this house.
I say you did. Retail is dead. I just want to get that on the record. I'll find the documentation for that and I'll show it to the council. But for the arrogance of this city hall to push Picture Main Street on people like me that have been doing business here for 50 years. I know how the city runs. I know how the traffic runs. In another city just like ours, just as big, just as many lanes down the middle, is Middletown, Connecticut. The only difference being the lady that runs the business district gets along with City Hall like peas in a pod. The transparency down there, you can see through anything. This city, it's BS. And I think I probably made a few enemies, so I'm going to relinquish the rest of my time. Thank you.
There is no
Thanks, Bob.
time, so.
There is no time. Again, as I said, we are welcoming anyone to speak, but having focused conversations about what we're talking about will make all of these meetings. Again, this is the first. Think of it like a series you're going to watch. Instead of on Netflix, though, we have to parse it out over the season. So
So more like Apple TV.
exactly. So moving online, Arvin Nelson, do you have anything to add to the conversation about what we're talking about? Let's ask you to unmute.
Hi, yeah, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I have my concerns about Picture Main Street. I will try to keep this focused because I love this town and I really want this to be successful. I guess my biggest concern and my biggest question would be about a trial run. My understanding is that towns from Pittsfield to Worcester to Boston have all had similar projects like this. They've all had trial runs before implementing something like Picture Main Street permanently. I would like to know more about why a trial one wouldn't work here. What's different about Northampton from all these other towns? And yeah, that would go, trial one for me personally would go a long way to assuaging some of my concerns. And that is all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, you did not mention your city of residence, and I forgot to.
Oh,
well,
yeah,
people
oh,
in the room have
yes.
already said that.
I apologize. Ward 2 in our own fair town of Northampton.
Thank you. Moving to the room, I got Jim Winston, if you would like to.
Good evening, Jim Winston, Ward 2, Northampton. So just some questions. My understanding is that the proposed project would do two things: bike lanes on Main Street, and we have a bike path that already runs parallel to Main Street. It's been there a long time. And the other thing is the repairs of the pipes and the roads, and the question of whether all the extensive work would need to be done if this project doesn't go through. But I guess the question is, my understanding is that the question I would have is the cost that would actually be saved by this project on this. Is it just to repave afterwards? How much would it cost to repair the pipes and fix the roads and sidewalks without this Picture Main Street project? Has there been opportunities for this town, like other towns in this area, to get grant funding to cover infrastructure work that hasn't been done because everything is in this basket? Other questions. We're at close to $40 million for this project. Who's responsible for paying the inevitable project overruns? Is the city responsible? How will that be covered? What is there a cost that people that are for this project would say, there's a cost that I'm not willing as a taxpayer to foot the bill? Is there any limit on this project? Interesting enough, as another commentator made, in this tool design project, there's no goal of what the purported safety ramifications could be with this project. The loss of 57 parking spots on Main Street, very significant. So my question is, how does removing all this parking, including the parking from Michelson Gallery down to CVS, 18 spots and 9 spots across the street from Urban Outfitters to the First Church, those 9 spots, how does that help the Main Street businesses? Does the city have any plan to financially assist those? Why do the people that own
It's
the
time,
businesses?
Jane. If you could
Okay,
just finish
if
the
I
thought,
just-
please.
We don't have, you can continue. Again, community resource, sorry.
We're not timing it?
We are not timing
Okay, wait a
here
minute.
because I want people to feel like I've given folks the ability to speak as long as they can, and I remind them to focus on the things that they can get the answers to at this meeting. Again, there's things that we're going to talk about: bicycles, stormwater, safety. If we really want to get to the presentation and some answers in this meeting, I would just suggest, instead of having a time limit, we just stay focused. But I will not cut you off for time. So continue.
I'll be very short. What is the city's plan to financially assist these businesses, not just during the proposed construction? That's going to end at some point if the project goes through. But then you're left with a downtown that loses a third of the parking spots. What's the city's plan to help those businesses? There's already businesses that are leaving Main Street now in anticipation. It's the first thing businesses ask when they come to a city is, what is the parking situation? And just ask yourself if you have an answer. The people that own businesses on Main Street, the people that own property buildings on Main Street, the people that have skin in the game, so to speak, because they've invested their blood, sweat, and tears in property on Main Street. Has the people that are in favor of this gone to those people and asked them how they can help them if this project goes through? A trial run is the way to go. Once concrete is
you.
poured, you can't go back.
Thanks, Jim. Going online, we're going to go to Daniel Winninger. Let's get you to unmute. Let you start your video. Yeah. Welcome.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for the time, Mr. Perry.
Just your name and where you reside.
Oh, sorry. My name is Daniel Winninger. I live in Williamsburg. I spend a lot of time in Northampton, though. You were asking us to talk about what is before us, and just want to maybe remind you that the public is, for public comment, we might be talking about what you are not talking about. One commenter said that Mayor Ciara said that retail is dead. While I'm sure that is, if she said that, that was taken out of context. It is kind of not doing great in Northampton, and I am sure that a 3-year project would make it even worse. And I think what needs to be done is a repair of Main Street and not a redo. We need to maintain Main Street, not overhaul it. There are the sidewalks. We can make the roads smooth so that bikes can ride without fear of destabilization. And one of my main questions is, why is the city neglected to paint the dotted white lines that would help drivers stay in lanes? And before you try to tell me that it's already one lane in each direction, why don't you take a look at how 99% of the drivers are already using the street? What we need is common sense solutions, not $40 million overhauls designed by people who don't even live here. While there are certainly safety issues that need to be addressed, that doesn't mean we need to do picture Main Street. It means we need to maintain Main Street first and then see how that goes. It might be the answer. Do I have a little more time?
I'll say thank you. Do you have any? Well, it's your time.
Yeah, a couple more questions. They were sort of reiterated. They were spoken before. If your reason for doing the project is that the utility infrastructure needs to be overhauled anyway, where is the evidence that is the case? And I understand that that might be presented in this meeting. And if it actually is the case, how can we design Main Street in a way that more people agree upon? Because I assure you the current design is widely unpopular. And if you don't believe me, why don't you put it to a vote to the people of Northampton? Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, moving to the room, we have Jess Dawson.
Jess Dawson, Northampton, Ward 3. Thank you, Councilor Perry, for clarifying to focus on tonight's topic. So I'm going to try and switch up what I was going to say really quickly. First of all, I just would like to say that personally, I'm very excited about the design for Picture Main Street, specifically for the safety and accessibility changes, but also for the infrastructure and the and just the better downtown community space that I'm hoping it will bring. Specifically on the topic of accessibility, I would really be curious to hear more about how thinking around accessibility and parking has been developed around this project, and all different kinds of accessibility and parking, and how that was determined, and kind of just what sorts of accommodations for accessibility the parking considerations take into account. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have someone who goes by iPhone. iPhone person. There you are, a real human being. It's the first step. Okay. You get her to unmute. Yes, we got you. We just asked you to unmute. We can't hear you yet. Sorry.
Okay. You hear me now?
Yeah, if you just state your name and where you live,
Yes.
and let us know what questions you have for today's presentations.
I apologize for not being able to rename my square iPhone. Shelley Berkowitz in Northampton. And I thank you, Councilor Perry, for running this public forum on PMS, since I probably won't make more friends either, but I believe that this project is a farce that has gone on long enough. And the question is how long it will go on. So specifically, the lack of transparency, the misinformation, the fake PR, pardon our progress, posted in empty storefront windows. So many of us now know the truth about the grave, irreversible harms that would be done in Northampton if the mayor took this irreversible step to rip the streets up for Picture Main Street. The die would be cast. The nuclear football would be activated, so to speak, on our city. Many of our remaining small businesses would be bankrupted and gone due to the disruption, the loss of, I believe, 57 parking spaces and underground vault storage spaces, the dangerous new added finding of many unmarked underground Eversource lines and pipes, the creation of dangerous, quote, protected bike lanes, is that an oxymoron? Which other towns have banned as unsafe, and the loss of mature shade tree canopy. But why is the real question? All to create a Disneyland-like fantasy Northampton for wealthy retirees who live in overpriced condos and to eat in whatever fancy restaurants remain. I believe that the mayor and her allies we have been lied to about the cost of this project. You know that the state money cannot be counted on, and that Northampton could be responsible for much of the up to 37 million and rising costs of PMS at the expense of all of us, our schools, our children, and all the essential services for the people who are the backbone of this town. The people who work hard to provide services every single day for all of us in Northampton, and many who can barely or not even any longer afford rent or housing. Please stop this gentrification. Fix the pipes and the sidewalks and fund our schools. Mayor, do you want your legacy to be remembered as the one who destroyed Paradise City, Northampton, the town that I love? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shelley. So I only have one more person on the in-person sheet. And so I've noticed some people who have come in since I took the sheet. So I'm going to check there. But just yeah, if you could check that. But I just want to tell people who do, if you just entered and want to make a comment, I had asked that folks really try and keep things focused to what we're talking about today, because this is not the only time we're going to talk about Picture Main Street here in Community Resources. We're going to discuss things like how we're going to support businesses. We're going to discuss how our emergency services will walk through. We will discuss things that even are available on our frequently asked questions, but just for the use of time, if you want to sign up now, step forward. With that being said, I have Heather Craig in the room.
I caught that. I am the person who loves to be the A student. Okay. So this is my issue. My name is Heather Craig. I live in Meadowbrook Apartments. My primary mode of transportation is the PVTA. And last week I spent 4 years, God, it felt like 4 years, 4 days in my wheelchair. Okay. So I have a lot of concerns about this, but my biggest is that this town is not using its best resource for this topic. My question, I'm going to ask it more than once, is will the city make the final plan that they have available easily on a computer? Because I had to jump through a lot of hoops for the 75% plan and found a lot of things that we might want to consider that I've heard have been fixed, but I can't see the plan it's been fixed on. So that's one thing. But what's really true is people with infrastructure needs drive cars, ride bicycles, ride the PVTA, and use wheelchairs downtown and walkers. I'm somebody with low vision, so I know that if you look at the disability community and you really poll us for what we know, because Complete Streets was actually designed by a bunch of sighted, able-bodied people. So its best use is like a template. You know, when you go on Google Docs and you're going to make a letter, gives you a business letter template. Well, you don't do it like that. You customize it for what you need. And the cities in the country that have done this the best have known who in their town needs those infrastructure things, and they've actively solicited their input. We have not done that. So, as somebody who does use all those things and who is concerned about what this plan does to the buses, I have found at least 4 places where somebody could be injured. And now I'm really going to show off, because Garrick was talking about getting the topic to match the disability. Guess what one of the #1 problems with curb cuts is? Water drainage. It will screw up your equipment. It will cause problems. Like, all of these things are interconnected. And I think because this is a really unique design, and because we have places where 4 buses need to stop and they leave people in wheelchairs because there's not enough wheelchair docks on the bus, and the bus only runs every hour and 10 minutes, there are a lot of things that we left out. The way we looked at the PVTA and what people who have vision issues and mobility issues need from the PVTA. If we fix that, we make it better for everybody and safer. It is not safe the way it is. It will not be safe with the plan. There is a place there where I can roll my wheelchair out. It will get enough speed that I won't be able to stop. A person coming down the bike lane will not be able to stop. They can flip over my chair and break their neck. Have I seen that accident happen in real life? Yes. And then we have 2 people in chairs. We need to really be able to see the plan as it is in its final design. We need to solicit input from people, and we need to decide if there might not even be a safer way to do this. So I'm always pro trial run. If we wanted to make one of the things people talk about, this is really innovative plan, will make national news. Well, we could make national news for doing the best trial run to make sure we got it right. And I'm going to ask my question again. At what point will the design that is going to the DOT be easily and readily available to any citizen in the city? Mind you, some of us have to use the library and or just our phones.
Yep.
So we really need to be able to see it. So that's my whole spiel.
Thank you so
I could
much.
give you a whole lot of
We'll be back.
detail.
That's, as I said, we'll be back.
Also want to apologize in advance because I am not doing well and I may need to leave in the middle of the meeting, and it really does not mean I don't care, and I'll be watching the
Oh.
YouTube.
Well, thank you. That's part of why we do this, is to have a record for everyone. Again, that's why I want to stay focused on the information that we're going to present, so that people who couldn't be here, because I know there's a housing authority meeting and other things that people are doing. So again, let's stay, I would like to stay focused, but you guys can say whatever you like. Catherine on the internet. Let's get you to unmute. Just name and where you reside.
Hi, Catherine Moriarty, and I reside in Northampton and Ward 6. I would like to echo the last commenter's call for accessibility of the plans. And I was wondering if there is a lighting specialist for the tool design team. And I was also wondering, when we're sourcing our lights, if we could focus on having fixtures that have dimming and brightening capabilities and shielding options, so that if we have visibility issues, we can fix them easily. And that is all I'm saying today. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving into page 2 on the room, James Lowenthal.
Hi, James Lowenthal, 181 Crescent Street. I am strongly in favor of Picture Main Street, but before I say any more and the many reasons why I support it, I will just wait to hear the presentation and then ask any follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you. Going to the webs again, we have Michael Stein. Get him to unmute. And it starts with videos. Name and where you're from.
Hi, thank you. My name is Michael Stein, a Ward 4 resident, Columbus Ave in Northampton. While I appreciate this committee taking up this topic and proactively bringing issues forward, the requests for curtailed comments limited to the topics of this meeting are the latest frustration in a long-managed public relations and public engagement campaign that has profoundly frustrated many members of the community. The last official event was likely the presentation by opponents to the current plan, where they were met with vitriol from former Council President Nash. The current City Council chose not to vote for answers to very basic and reasonable questions about PMS, in effect choosing this highly controlled engagement instead. This is not transparency, and this won't heal the ongoing rift that's going on in this community around this project. I've heard that this is our, that Picture Main Street is our once in a century opportunity to remake Main Street, and that to oppose it is to oppose progress. Progress for whom? Progress towards what? I hear that when it comes to PMS, money is no problem. There will be costs, but we will simply bear them. But when it comes to helping poor kids entitled to intervention, there's not a dime to help them. Lastly, how can we trust this administration to manage this project? The hub, Churches, is now an albatross around the neck of the city, a testament to poor judgment and lack of planning and foresight. Do you trust this administration to negotiate right-of-way and vault deals with Eric Sewer and other large downtown landowners? How many more millions will we put in his pocket? Despite our wonderful SIP, we're surprised about the deteriorating conditions of the parking garage, which is supposed to absorb all the parking spaces that are being eliminated. Whatever merits the project may have, this is not the administration to manage them, and this is not the administration to facilitate or bring this community together around it. We've failed to do that, and we continue to fail to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Moving back into the room, we've got a Nick Horton here. Approach the...
Thank you to the committee and the council. My name is Nick Horton from Ward 1. I had the opportunity recently to take my mother-in-law to Pride March and other things downtown in a wheelchair. And I was really able to kind of during that wonderful event to see just where the infrastructure is and where that leaves the accessibility needs. And again, we have a remarkable downtown. We need to work to make it vibrant, but there's so many parts and pieces that don't work. And to be able to kind of think about both fixing the underside that we're not talking about tonight, that's really critical, but then kind of making sure that what is visible is accessible in a way that's not there. I'm very excited about the project. Look forward to hearing more.
Thank you very much. Going back online, we have a Linda. Linda, I'm gonna ask you to unmute to get our. Ooh.
Hi, am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Hi, I'm Linda. I live in Ward 6 on Glendale Road, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity to speak. So I think downtown is dangerous, but I'm not necessarily in favor of the project as it's proposed. To second something that was said earlier, there are currently 2 different blueprints online that I could access. And the blueprints are very important to me to see how the project actually lays out specifically. And in these blueprints, I have some serious concerns with the bike path concepts where there's 90-degree turns with vertical curbs. Vertical curbs are the enemy of cyclists. One of the designs did round some of them, but the idea of actually being able to stay on your bike and make these curves. Also at intersections, there's no bicycle queuing areas. And once again, as I said, bikes don't do 90 degrees. You have to actually be able to turn. I know we talk about improving bicycle infrastructure, but we never actually look at how someone has designed it, as can a person actually stay on their bike and turn? And we have some examples of this around the city where these 90 degrees and vertical curbs have been in place. And when people talk about trial runs, these are things that we can do. We have a giant parking lot on King Street where we could set up cones and different things to see how bicycles actually turn. And when you do your level of services that's in the plan for that, you show a tag along bike, which is an adult bike with a little bike behind it. And you show that you want to encourage this level of service of all bikes, but yet we haven't shown that a bike that may be 9 feet in length can actually make this turn. When we talk about accessibility, we're not even talking about bicycle accessibility, whereas some bikes are almost 4 feet in width so that someone can balance on 3 wheels, or someone who's vision impaired could be on a recumbent tandem, which could be also 36 inches wide, but close to 10 feet long. And when I've talked earlier to many counselors that are not longer on the board and some that are, they've never actually looked at the blueprints of this project. They've only looked at a template. There's some currently sitting there now that when I've had the conversation, they said, I've never looked at the blueprints, and they approved it. And that's the conversations we like to have. Is it true functional infrastructure? Quickly, I'll get to my next concept is about, because I live on Glendale Road, Route 66 is my primary way to get home and to all the other ways I can transpire my business. The original plans said that intersection, Route 10, Route 9, Route 66, and West Street. Route 66 is West Street, Route 9 is Elm, and Route 9, Main Street, will become twice as bad as it currently is. That's the intent of the redesign, to make that intersection twice as bad as it already is, was in the documentation. I don't know how we can survive that. And even when you talk about that's the major truck route, we were talking about the Northampton High redesign. It was structured that 30 tractor trailers per hour go through Route 9. Well, they're down there also. And how are we going to get them through this area? So the next concept is back to biking and pedestrian. If we're rerouting all of this commercial traffic to our side streets, to Ryan Road, to Burt's Pits Road, to my street, Glendale Road, because the tractor trailers and large commercial vehicles can no longer use Route 9, Route 10, and Route 66, all of the neighborhoods that we may bike from, we can now no longer bike on our streets. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Moving to the room, I've got to think of Peter. Oh, there. Yep. See, I didn't even have to go to the last name.
Good evening.
Hey.
I'm Peter Rayton. I live on Burspit Road. And thank you all for hosting this conference, this seminar, and for your service to the city, everyone. I ride my bike a bunch, but I have a bunch of concerns about Picture Main Street. And one of them currently is under discussion is about the trial run. And I do have a suggestion regarding that. One would be that the trial run, in an effort to minimize the cost, but at least see a portion of the plan on the ground, would be to work on only the King Street, Pleasant Street, Route 9 intersection. You'd eliminate the two islands. It's only two islands that would need to be taken out. So there's one major cost, and you'd only assess the one stoplight there and the one on the other side of the low underpass. But you could then, with blockades of various kinds, temporary blockades, perhaps speed bumps to slow people down, which is the interest of creating safety. Maybe paint the white lines, the perfect suggestion from somebody earlier tonight. You would at least get a handle on a potential for the impact of the full redesign. The other intersection, the previous speaker is right on. That's a real nest, you know. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Zipping through this here. Online, we've got Megan Zinn. Let's get you to unmute. Yep.
All right. Am I unmuted now?
Yes, just name and
Great,
location.
great. My name is Megan Zinn. I'm in Ward 3. And as somebody who spends a lot of time driving and walking through that stretch of road, Main Street, I've been very excited about the redesign of Main Street since I first attended meetings about it back in 2021. The changes designed by educated, experienced professionals will make it much safer for drivers, bikers driving to town, and bikers commuting through town, and pedestrians, especially those with disabilities, more welcoming to visitors, better for our environment, and it will expand the community's third spaces, which we need so much right now. And so I'd like to know more about what those of us in support of this project can do to help counter the misinformation being spread about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next online is Masaborski. You got it perfect. And can you unmute? You should be. There you go.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Melissa Makaborski, I live in Northampton. Picture Main Street and disability rights are directly related. Anyone who has been following along with local politics over the past 2 years will know that Mayor Chiara has made a choice to defund our schools in order to put money to the side to save for this project. This has led to numerous violations of the civil rights of children with disabilities. We cannot afford Picture Main Street as it's currently designed. This project is not a done deal, and there's still time to do things differently. If our aim is truly to increase ADA accessibility, then fix the pipes and fix the sidewalks and make them ADA accessible and fund the schools. If we decrease the scope of this project, we can afford all of these things. Forget the street narrowing, forget the bike lanes when we have a bike path right next door. And forget the expensive and non-participatory window lights that are currently being negotiated between Planning Director Carolyn Mish and one of the property owners on Main Street. And we all know who the main property owners are. 1 minute, sorry. There is a whole category of items that are listed as non-participatory for this project. Those are things that will require municipal funds. They will not be covered by state funding or federal funding. This is a fact, and I've seen documentation to say that, even though some on the council still claim they don't know. Large municipal costs will be associated with this project. At the previous Finance Committee meeting, I asked, how will we afford this? Director Nardi was present, but she answered my question with silence. I hope some people on the council have some ideas about that. There are 4 ways that the city might fund this project as far as I can tell. The first one is to use the money they've already stolen from the children of the city and put to the side, but that's not going to be enough. The second one is you will try and get an override in 2028 billed as for the schools. That is a lie. Just like the past 2 years, you've lied to us that we didn't have enough money to fund our schools, as we saw an 11.6 million certified free cash and then a 7 million one the next year. The third way is you might try and take out a loan. But I asked Scanlon at the Finance Committee meeting how that would affect our ability to fund the operating budget, and he said it would lead to a lot of problems. That means more cuts to schools and services in our future. The fourth one is debt exclusion, which would put this on the ballot. Let the voters decide. We need to prevent the possible harm this project would cause. And if we all agree that this is a democracy, and we believe in democracy, and we believe in free speech, and all I see is PR campaigns coming out of the city, and all of you smiling and pretending like everything is fine, yet tonight I see you start to look concerned because there's no denying that the majority has concerns here. Councillor Perry, you recently said to me when I talked about your votes for school funding and how you have been one of the biggest hindrances to funding our schools in Northampton. You told me, quote, if you're going to play those little games, take my name out of your mouth. Is this the type of city that we want to live in? You're nodding yes. I don't agree. Thank you.
Thank you very much. George K. is next. Nope.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you very much, counselors, for holding this session. And I'm so pleased to hear that it's one of many coming up, because it's a complicated project ahead of us. But I am 110% behind the Main Street redesign project, and I have trust in City Hall, the planning office, the consultants and engineers that we've hired to do the work on this. I'm not an expert in anything at all in terms of the Picture Main Street project. I have served for 20 years on the planning board, so I've seen a variety of different projects be proposed and come and go in the city. And I think everybody here in this room loves the city and appreciates living here. And we see more and more people wanting to move into the city. Big reason for that is because we have a somewhat walkable, safe downtown, but we really need to make our downtown safer. I don't have any other specific questions for the presentation today. I am looking forward to hearing more about the accessibility features. I myself am pretty mobile, but I have many friends who are impaired visually or physically and need help in getting around. And I know they're really looking forward to changes to that aspect of our city streets. I also hearken back, although it's not comparable, but to our citywide discussions around the roundabouts that we have seen over the past 10 or 15 years in the city. There was a hue and cry that roundabouts would never work with our drivers, and I think everyone appreciates them now. And again, I hear, without being too pejorative, that old fable of the sky is falling, the sky is falling. I wish folks could trust that people have looked into this project far and wide. And sure, will there be cost overruns? I'm sure there will be. But I think our fiscal managers will also manage that while parceling out other funds for city services. So thank you again for holding these hearings, and I really look forward to this step as we move Picture Main Street ahead. Thanks.
Thanks, George. Coming next, Dan Brindell. Name and where you're from. You should be able to unmute. There you go.
All right. Hi, my name is Dan Brindell. I'm in Northampton. I'm downtown. This project would affect me, my neighborhood. If I can take on one thing just real quick, we hear this claim of misinformation a lot, and I find that pretty offensive. I think the rest of us, we're lay people. We've done this research on our own. A lot of this information is not actively put out by the government or is hard to figure out. And a lot of people have put a lot of time and effort into piecing this stuff together and trying to express their own concerns. If one business owner says, I love Picture Main Street, that doesn't mean that another business owner saying Picture Main Street's going to hurt my business is not telling the truth. Both of those can be true. Just like certain people's kids are underserved in our schools while other people's kids are doing fine. Your good experience or good opinion of a project doesn't negate somebody else's, especially when we're talking about business owners, where different businesses downtown have different interests. Now, specifically, this meeting is about accessibility issues, and I love to hear that because when you talk to a lot of people with mobility issues, they will bring up downtown and they will say it's very hard to get around. You look at what's going on in front of Local Burger, especially when there's snow, and it's, you know, clearly there's been no plan here whatsoever to allow people mobility downtown. What I really wonder is you hear about how the city asked people what their mobility and accessibility issues were downtown as far back as 2017. And a lot of those changes haven't taken place because they've been attached to this larger project. And what I just really wonder is why can't we make these small, much more affordable changes to give our own residents and workers access to our own stores and facilities right now or within the year, instead of attaching it to a giant project that needs government funding, needs to go through all these hoops, et cetera, et cetera. And I think even the bigger point is that the redesign of downtown will have its own built-in accessibility issues. We are going to have large curbs. We are going to have bike paths that have to then be crossed. We're going to have less and less parking in front of businesses. These are things that directly affect people with mobility issues. And so the idea that we're going to fix certain things while making other things potentially far worse just feels like we're putting hats on hats on hats, and we're really overcomplicating it. I think this accessibility and mobility issue is the issue that does need to be looked at in downtown, and I'm glad that you guys are, but I beg you guys to decouple it from this larger controversial project that has to go through tons of hoops and costs a small fortune when that's really not needed to give people accessibility. And just to touch on what the previous speaker said, when we talk about trusting the government and trusting that people have looked at this thing, you know, we're trusting this government that now has over $3 million poured into a resilience hub. That's just a money pit. It's a construction nightmare. None of that money is going to our homeless or needy people, despite the fact that it keeps on pouring in. That's money mismanagement. A lot of people say that the money in the schools is being mismanaged. So it's hard for us to just have faith that the money is going to be managed. And when we talk about people have looked at these things, I've looked at it. Talk about misinformation. I've looked at it. I've read through the entire Picture Main Street plan. It relies on something called traffic evaporation, which is basically, hey, this new plan is kind of anti-car and super progressive and modern, so we'll have less cars downtown, period. And so they're not doing the math of what happens when there are less lanes, what's going to happen with traffic on this major thoroughway that goes through our city. How difficult is it going to be when somebody has to pull out of one of those parallel parking spots, et cetera, et cetera? Nobody has actually looked at that because they've relied on this idea called traffic evaporation, which is maybe a viable idea in a big city, but we are not that kind of a big city. And so, you know, just please take care of the accessibility issues downtown. I love that you guys are having a hearing on this, but let's decouple that from all this other stuff that's, you know, 50 or more % unpopular in the city, super controversial, is going to cost us tens of millions of dollars, needs consultants and designers and Congress people, and you know, none of that is necessary to just fix these curbs so that people can get to the stores and restaurants where they want to get to. So I beg you guys, please just decouple it and let's stop with this misinformation nonsense. We can have differences of opinion in this town without anybody being misinformation. You know, it's cynical, and that's really the rest of us that are looking for reform are not cynical, and that really hurts actually.
Thanks, Dan. Going next, we've got Craig Della Pena. We got here. Let's ask this guy to unmute. Craig.
Unmute.
Name and
Okay.
where are you from?
My name is Craig Della Pena, and I live at 62 Chestnut Street in Florence. That's Ward 5. In fact, many of you know my house. I'm the guy that bought the really run-down house that sits 8 feet from the trail, because I've been involved in all the rail-to-trail wars in the Northeast United States. So it's very important for me to not be seen as merely talking the talk, but I actually walk the walk. The last rail-trail war, the last rail-trail war was broken in 2022, and that was in Sudbury, Massachusetts. Now here we are today, and picture Main Street's coming forward. And I'm not going to say there's been a lot of disinformation. I'll just boldly say that a lot of people have paying attention. You don't realize where we are at the center of the densest network of dead steam railroad corridor in North America. Do you not think that is impactful, given that there's over 200 projects underway in this little neck of the woods? There's nothing else like this in North America. And there's one project you probably see a little branding on called Mass Central Trail. That was never seen to be possible to reassemble it. But during the pandemic, DOT figured out, yes, it can be done, but we're not going to do a report on costing that up until someone, pointing at me, does a report about how much it's worth. The East-West Trail, Boston to Northampton, is going to be worth over $213 million a year, with 4 to 5 million users on it, with 400,000 to 500,000 overnight visitors. That trail intersects with 18 others. The westernmost of those 18 is the one that runs from New Haven to Northampton. That is the longest interstate rail trail in the Northeast. What a coincidence. Both of them intersect at Union Station in downtown Northampton. In fact, if you are really paying attention, you will see a little sign there, an obelisk, a granite obelisk that says mile 0 on both sides. Now you know why it's there. Now what's about to happen? I commissioned another report this past fall to prove what is that worth. You know, we've been building these trails out, little chunk change grants for 50 years. No one ever asked the big question, what the hell is it all worth? We've been working on this for 2 generations. Let's look at it, what it's worth. Well, that north-south trail is going to be worth another $115 million added in. So now we're up to like 6 million users a year. What's going to be the big impactful thing about downtown Northampton and picture Main Street? The big influx of bicyclists that has never been talked about as far as I can tell. And I haven't really, to be honest, participated. I only go where the real wars are. That is to say, where there's real opposition. And in this case, everybody's so prim per employee, not like in the real world where I've been traveling and ugly stuff. But this is about to happen. If you want to do a test run, you still haven't told me the main metric here. The main metric about the intersection of these trails, which is still about 5 years out, is we're going to see an extra 5,000 to 8,000 people on bikes coming into downtown Northampton every nice day of the good weather months. And the train aspect here, being in Hampshire County, you really don't pay attention what's happening in Hampden County. Shortly, there's going to be hourly train service to New York City from Springfield. That will ooze further north of Springfield. So there's going to be ways for people to take their bikes on the train in New Haven, Springfield, Northampton, and Boston to be able to experience all this on these corridors, plural. That is the big elephant in the room. And I noticed somebody said something about Jennifer Toole. I've been doing this work over 30 years. One of my earliest lectures I ever had, and where you see me in the car here right now, I'm about to go into another presentation about this topic. But Jennifer Toole and I did a tag team presentation in Washington, D.C. in 1997 to talk about the Norwottuck Rail Trail and how it's evolving, only being a few years old, way back in the late 90s. Something more than just purely recreational, but it was oozing into something utilitarian and transportation themed and just day-to-day stuff themed. That was a come to Jesus moment, so to speak. That was very impactful, and we're living through the experience this now, and we're almost at the end. Thanks for all your hard work on this. I know it's been drama filled, and thank you for hanging in there. We'll get through this, believe me. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. You never know. You're going to learn stuff even when there are people making comments. And there's new people here. I want to reset ourselves. We're very close to the presentation. So I see that there are people who just joined us. I had said before that this is only the first of many meetings on Picture Main Street. There will be other meetings on things like stormwater, trees, bicycles, safety. We're really focused today on accessibility in the test pits. So if we want to get to that, I hope we can just move through all of this. And there will be so many more opportunities for folks to talk about and discuss all the other parts of Picture Main Street. With that being said, we have Dynasty.
Hi, my name is Dynasty. I live in Northampton. I have a son that has autism and intellectual disability. I'm actually really concerned about Main Street due to the fact that there are disabled children, disabled adults here that live in Northampton. And that's all I want to say. I didn't want to make it too long, but I do definitely want to hear you out and see what's going on, because somebody told me I should come in and to hear you guys out. So I'm going to mute myself and pass it on to the next person.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Jackie Balance. Oh, moved. Where are you at here? Hello. State your name. Where are you from?
Thank you, Councilor Perry. Jackie Balance from Florence. And I've been out of the loop for a while. So this is really a wonderful opportunity to hear what's the latest on Picture Main Street. I want to say that I have to disagree rather, with George Kohut. I do not trust the planners in City Hall. During COVID, I watched city business on Zoom almost daily, all the committees. Oh, urban forestry is my favorite. No egos over there. Anyway, I saw how one department didn't know what the other departments were doing, and even those doings, when those doings affected the other departments, if you follow that. Everybody was working in silos. And if our mayor was genuinely transparent and responsive, we would have had this conversation at least 2 years ago. Better late than never. I am very moved by the testimony tonight from our disabled friends and neighbors. And I have not heard one disabled person who supports the PMS plan as it stands. I don't know why those who have spoken in favor of PMS as it stands, why they have not addressed the safety issues that we've heard about tonight. Safety for the cyclists, safety for people in wheelchairs, etc. So I would really appreciate hearing what Councillor Dubb's take is on these plans. And I just have 2 words for Picture Main Street: safety first. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. And we're so close to hearing from Councillor Dubbs because we only have one. Here we go. Quaverly, state your name and where you from.
This is Quaverly Rothenberg from Ward 3. I'm sure that Councillor Dubbs is going to be in support of this project because he wants the sidewalks repaired, as we all do. And I think that needs to be a primary focus of what we're doing here and what we're doing with the grant money. We know that sidewalks are expensive. I don't think that we can afford to do the underground portion of the project, and I don't think that we need to do it. We heard from Donna, the head of DPW, repeatedly in the years leading up to now that those pipes are okay and that doing the work was going to damage them. And we also heard from the Save Paradise City group that the pipes you're going to put in don't really help us with the climate issue. They're not big enough. So if that is the part of the project that is going to lead you into all the unknowns, because everyone who works in construction tells you that the second you go underground, that's Pandora's box, right? That's where all the problems are. And you can see it from the Eversource as-builts that it's a mess down there. If that is the part of the project that is going to cost the city so much money because you have to out of pocket without grant funding buy the sellers that belong to the businesses, if the businesses are going to go out of business because they need that storage space and because they can't afford to be shut down for 3 years, then you really need to be focusing on what this project purports to be about, which are the sidewalks, which are not that time consuming, but are expensive. So you need to figure out how you modify your grant proposal to not basically destroy downtown, but to get the things you need from it. So my question would be, can we have full transparency about your understanding, this administration's understanding of this grant in terms of what requirements it is that you think you need to be meeting in order to get the money? Do you think you need a protected bike lane to get all of this money? I mean, that is not solving the safety issue for the bikes, right? Because every intersection is still unprotected. For bikes to be safe in Northampton, you need to promote biking culture in Northampton. You need to have a consistent way that cars and bikes share the road on every street in Northampton, not just on 2 blocks downtown. And you certainly don't want to be putting bikes right into conflict with car doors that are opening, right? So this plan actually reduces the safety for bikes. This is not a good bike plan. But if there's some element of biking that, has particularities around the grant funding, we want to know what that is so that we, the public, can discuss that and put forward something and make sure we're protecting the free money that the community does want without spending all of the bad money that we don't want to spend. Because like Melissa Makaborski said, the money we have saved for this project has come from city worker wages, has come from schools. Those, infographics that the mayor and now her friends nonprofit have put out about how the money we've been saving in cash is according to the best practices of the DOR, those are lies. That's not what the DOR says. They say if your piggy banks are full, you don't need to save more money. So you've been shaving money off of services that people depend on. The sidewalks are also something that we depend on. So we need you to move forward in a responsible way. We need you to change this project. I also note that you know, when it comes to credibility, democracy, transparency, who we heard from tonight in favor of the Jessica Dawson, who is a marketer whose only review for her business comes from the wife of the mayor's chief of staff on her website landing page. And she is also a director of this new nonprofit that is supposedly serving as an information hub. If you would like to interrupt me and restrict my speech, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to continue. So this nonprofit is also supposedly having already talked to the city, just repeating the city talking points, right? And so what we see in Northampton, and with this project in particular, is we see that you depend so heavily on PR and manufacturing consent from the community. Why is that? If this project is what we actually wanted in the way that we wanted it, why do you need to do that? Why do you need to skirt the law in that way? Why do you depend on these nonprofits like the DNA or ServiceNet or now the Northampton Information Hub doing your work, your communications work, propping up your administration to make it look like it's doing good for our community? I feel terrible for these nonprofits that they're in that position. And we heard from George Kohout, who, as he said, was on the planning board for so long. He was entrusted in passing zoning that was going to gentrify our city. He says he's so excited that more and more people are moving to our city, but no, the city population has remained stagnant. What we are seeing are working families being gentrified out of the city and wealthy retirees coming in. And Director Mish will tell us that's inevitable. But it's not. It's by design. It's what we are doing. And finally, we heard also from Megan Zinn, Bill Newman's co-host, right? We heard from James Lowenthal, a lobbyist for lighting, who's been having nice relationships with the city lately. That's a lot like Ben Spencer, sort of getting what he wanted and then supporting city projects. We did hear from Nick Horton, who said he came here with his mom to the Pride Festival, and he noticed that the sidewalks are not good. And so it seems like it would be good to fix them. And we agree. See, so that was an organic piece of feedback that you got. And it's just about the sidewalks, which you should be fixing throughout the entire city. And then Craig De La Pena, I mean, I don't know what that was about, but he's a realtor, and it sounds like he's friends with Jennifer Toole, who it sounds like maybe went to school with Narkowitz as well. So we're really not seeing any really organic support of things beyond what we all agree we need, which are the sidewalks and trees. Why not put in new trees? That's fine. You have the Urban Forestry Commission. You have $300,000 or more in that account. Add them. Don't take away the trees that we have. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with this one statement, which is what I heard today on social media, which, by the way, our public meetings are starting to go viral on social media because we are so incompetent and so classist. So be on the alert about that. It really surprised me. I've been posting about us for years, and it's finally taken off. It's not good. But someone said, and they're real, about Trump and America. They said, America is not this way because he is president. He is president because America is this way. And when liberals hear that, I'm sure they will think that she was just talking about MAGA Republican voters, that there's too much of that in America. She's not. She's talking about classism. She's talking about liberals and gentrification. She is talking about lavish remodel projects that are way out of your price range that you pay for on the backs of children and workers and artists. If you want to lose your 30-year project, which, by the way, with all of your marketing, that the best you could come up with for a project that's the culmination of Wayne Fiden's decades is a project called PMS in a city full of women, I think you understand that we're not dealing with the intelligentsia here, and you should maybe tap the brakes and check yourself with some of your smarter community members. If this is where we are, and you want to keep pushing this, all you will do is aggravate both sides of the working class. The left, who sees it's an equity issue, the right, who sees it's a corruption issue, and you will bring them together and you will finally get yourselves voted out of office. You are just on a razor thin wire of 79 votes and winning re-election by 0.5%. This is foolish. This is self-defeating. And this is harmful to our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That You're okay. That completes our public comment portion. For everyone, we made it. And I am going to say we're just going to take a brief break to reset. When we come back, we're going to actually have presentations and get down to some information. Thanks, everyone. See you soon. 10 minutes. Turn to this very family feeling community resources meeting. Thanks everybody for your patience. And thanks for all the public comments. Now we're going to hop in to the most important part. I'm going to skip a little bit in our meeting order just to get to the main portion, which is Picture Main Street Accessibility Improvement Update. And I will turn that over to the mayor as well as my fellow councilors and other directors.
All right. Good evening, counselors and everyone who's here. So first of all, I want to say I'm really happy to be here to present on this. This section is on the significant accessibility improvements in the Picture Main Street project and to then give a general update. I want to give great thanks to my colleagues for joining me in this presentation, Director Mish, Director LaScalia, and very special thanks to Councilor Dubs. He and I have been talking about the Main Street redesign for years now. And as you may know, before being elected the Ward 4 councilor, Councilor Dubs served on the Disability Commission and was the chair of the Disability Commission. So he came onto the council having already been deeply involved in discussions around accessibility needs in the city. And most of this project is in Ward 4, with the lower section being in Ward 3. Shout out to Ward 3. And so I'm very grateful for the discussions that we've had and for your experience, which you will share, and with all the things that we're going to discuss around this. So thank you very much, Councilor Dubs. So starting up, can we get that Zoom window off, you think? Like, yeah, minimize that. I think that's good. Yeah, I just, so it wasn't taking up half part of the screen. Okay, slide 2. So this is talking about the general overview of the condition of the road, sidewalk, and the transition space between the two. So the current conditions that we're going to talk about don't cover other aspects of the project in depth, like the water and stormwater infrastructure, and to a lesser extent, sewer, all of which is badly in need of being replaced and very old. But we're going to focus on some other things. So first, we're going to start off with safety, as we always do, because it is the primary purpose for this project. We had been identified as being in the top 5% for accidents in our downtown corridor. And so what we're going to be talking about specifically in this section is about improving safety for people with disabilities and vulnerable road users. But all of these improvements that we're going to talk about benefit everybody. So the current state of downtown Main Street and the road is that this section of roadway was last repaved in 1979. And it is classified as the lowest or in the poorest condition of pavement on our pavement conditions list. And now the sidewalks, they were last rebuilt in between 1980 and 1981. And the city did a sidewalk inventory in 2017, which looked at the condition of the sidewalk. And in that study, which is now almost 10 years old, the Main Street sidewalks were categorized as in the most rough condition. So of course, there has been continued deterioration over these last 9 years. Another condition is the tree roots and frost heaves and cracks. So these are all impediments for those with disabilities and for everyone who uses the sidewalks. You know, wheels get stuck and there's a lot of uneven terrain, and you'll see some examples of this. And but we also have pedestrian trip and falls. And the sidewalk is also not consistently wide enough to allow outdoor dining and pedestrians with mobility devices. And in some places, the sidewalk isn't really wide enough to just be able to have people pass by each other, particularly if someone's in a wheelchair and trying to get by other folks. Moving on to the crosswalks, they are also in very poor pavement conditions. And some of the cross slopes are not ADA compliant. Our curb cut ramps are cracking and worn down and uneven. We also have extremely wide crosswalks that vary from 50 to 105 feet across. And so that's traveling across that large expanse of very uneven pavement. So 12% of residents in Northampton have known disabilities. And if it takes them that extra time to cross that long expanse, they also have that much longer exposure time to traffic and dangerous conditions, as you'll see. Okay, moving on to slide 3, please. So next we have a video to show you that is with the current chair of the Disability Commission, Amy Sugihara. So this is part of a series of videos that the Emmy Award-winning producer and filmmaker Thomas Drought did about this project. Whoops. And so I thank everyone in advance for giving it your time and your attention. It's an excellent view and moving perspective from someone who uses mobility devices and the challenges and restrictions that she faces downtown right now. And then after the video, I'm going to hand it over to Councillor Dubs, who will share his perspective and visual representation of the current conditions that he navigates on a daily basis as a wheelchair user. So, all set?
I think so. No. Well, I had to turn, I think I need to turn. Okay.
Is it the Wi-Fi?
Sorry.
Different sides of moving. And so now being a wheelchair user and having to navigate and figure out everyday living using a wheelchair and how that changes absolutely everything. Navigating the downtown.
What's that? Yeah.
If you chair me for most of my life and then have transitioned to
Jeremy's a full.
For those watching, we're just trying to figure out how to get this screen share to play sound. We're just going to take a quick 5-minute break. Zach, we're going to stop this.
Got my wheelchair. And I'm in my room. I have to see a different side of living. And so now being a wheelchair user and having to navigate and figure out everyday living using a wheelchair and how that changes absolutely everything. Navigating the downtown is
Can't get the audio. There is the transcript.
Oh.
No, that's fine. This is actually helpful. Okay. So, yeah. No, that's actually.
Yeah. Okay. We're just gonna move forward and just sure. Thank you guys for your patience. We're just gonna move through this, and if I'm correct, we will have these videos and that slide available for the public as well, so we can all go back and look and fill in this little moment right here. So, Carolyn, if you want to try it. Thanks. All right, Carolyn, back at it.
Yeah, but they haven't said that they're like back. I would try to pause. Yeah, but then that's the only way you can hear it. Is it? Oh, okay, let's try this.
Sides of living.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunately a good video.
I went to able-bodied for most of my life, and then have transitioned to mobility devices, and I got my wheelchair about 3 years ago. You know, and I'm in my early 50s. I have seen different sides of living. And so now being a wheelchair user and having to navigate and figure out everyday living using a wheelchair and how that changes absolutely everything. Navigating the downtown is very, very sometimes dangerous, treacherous. Kind of big crack here, so I'm going to go at an angle. This is bad. Another one at an angle. This curb cut needs some attention. So I'm going to try to just go get my wheels in between. Go over top of the big crack. So picture Main Street. I'm really excited about it and hopeful about it for a few different reasons. So one, curb cuts we knew. Right now, some of the curb cuts, I can't go down them safely even with someone behind me holding me, like they're so steep. So that curb cut is tricky, it's pretty steep. And then crossing the street in a mobility device, being down low with the traffic. No, I don't do that, right? So I'm always with someone who is able-bodied, who can be seen safely by the traffic. And I often don't come to the downtown independently because it is not very navigable in its current state. And so part of the redesign is shortening the crosswalk, so shortening the distance that we have to travel to get across the street. That the current length on Main Street is so long. And right now, when I drive through the downtown, I see people of all abilities, you know, regardless, kind of hesitant at the edge of the crosswalks and waiting to cross and checking, making sure it's safe. And, you know, it is not set up to be a place where people talk. It's not set up to be this inviting, let's sit down and enjoy our downtown. It's set up for the cars to drive through, to get here quickly or to pass through quickly. The stores are amazing, the restaurants are amazing, but it's not overall inviting to people to come and spend time and right. It's you have to be kind of on, right? Like a high energy, attentive. Yeah, not built with our best interest in mind, right? It's built for speed. It's built for efficiency for vehicles. Maybe that's the focus, you know, and so let's turn that and have it be a space where people can be and relax, wine, and actually go into the stores leisurely, go into the restaurants leisurely, and really kind of lower stress and enjoy the space. So I'm really excited for the disability community, anyone who uses any kind of mobility device, to have safer sidewalks along with crosswalks, right? So the sidewalks are going to be wider. They will be new, which means the cracks will disappear. The redesign will make the downtown much more navigable for people who use mobility devices and more effective, more usable for the entire population, whether you have a disability or not. One of the things about the design I'm also excited about in terms of for the disability community, the accessible parking spots are going to be varied. So the kinds of parking spots will change. So right now we just have pull-in parking. So there will be pull-in parking with space on one side or another side, and there will also be just parallel parking for accessible spots, which matters greatly. So depending on the device you use and how it comes out of your vehicle, you need a different kind of parking spot to get out safely. Like right now, I use one and I get around on the back of my car where I get my wheelchair out. I would never do that in the pull-in head-in parking. I'm not going to get my wheelchair out of the back of my car with traffic going by and sit down low in a wheelchair. Traffic will. So it's really important to have different kinds of accessible parking. In the Main Street redesign, this gets leveled out somehow. This is a track here. Slowly, when I turn my motor on, just to get me up easily. So my focus is really down on the sidewalk. See what obstacles are in front of me. So this is a little steep bump. And people who sometimes I have to make sure that they see me coming. Sometimes people are in conversation or just spacing out. So I'm just doing my chair manually, and as you can see, it's slow going. I have both understanding for people who are resisting the change, because it is hard. Change is hard. I resisted having to start using mobility devices, so I get it, kind of fighting that and not wanting it and, being angry about change. And I also There's part of me that feels like, hey, we got to do this. It's not an option. I mean, the climate crisis is like, it is the issue of our time. Redesign, it's fundamentally important. It is about humans responding. And so we have to change the way we're planning city. Planning roads and infrastructure. Like, our thinking has to change, and therefore then our planning and our funding, you know, what we prioritize, what gets funded has to change.
For those who are in the room and also online. Again, that video is available and will be accessible from the city's website and as part of the minutes in general, meeting notes from this meeting. So you can watch it on your own.
Yeah, and thank you to Amy and Thomas for it. And I'm sorry you didn't get to experience it the way you should have. It's really very powerful. So I do encourage people to watch it again on your own time. And now, Councilor Dubs.
Thank you so much. First, I'd like to thank Mayor Sierra and Director Mish for including me in this presentation. And I'd also like to thank Amy Sugihara for that video. Although we didn't get a chance to see it as well as we could have, she is an amazing advocate in Northampton and is the chair of the Disability Commission. And I've been working with her for a few years, and happy to have that she made that video so that we could all see what it's like out there. So I'm here today as a disabled person, and I just want to address a little bit. There was a statement made in here tonight that disturbed me, and it was a statement that we are not people and that we are politicians. And I just want to push back very hard on that because I am a person. I'm a disabled person. I became a city councilor, and before that I was on the Disability Commission as a disabled person who lives in Northampton, who loves the city, and I've lived here for over 20 years, and I've been having to deal with inaccessible sidewalks, curb cuts, businesses for over 20 years now. And I ran for council because I wanted to try to have a voice for disabled people in Northampton and to try to be a representative for them. So I'm here today as a disabled person. And a couple weeks ago, I went out on Main Street and I took some videos, or sorry, not videos. I took some photos of the current conditions from the perspective of me, who I am a wheelchair user. And so we could just kind of look at these. You can see these are the curb cuts. This first one on the top left is a curb cut leading to City Hall, and so basically, I would just say that all of these photos are spots that I avoid when I travel Main Street. So these curb cuts are all curb cuts that I don't use because I can't, because these are dangerous. This one right here on the left, top left, is leading to City Hall. I pass by that. I go in the street when I go to that spot. I go in the street and go to the curb cut that's to the right of that, which is much safer. But I skip that curb cut because it's, as you can see, it's not usable. The second one on the top right, that's a curb cut that leads that I think to Noodles, and another spot that I just don't even try to use. The next curb cut is another one that's like it's too steep, it's lopsided, it's all cracked up. I avoid that curb cut as much as I can. And then to the right of that, at the bottom right, this one right here is probably one of the most unusable curb cuts on Main Street. And as you can see, it leads to Pulaski Park, and I've never used that curb cut because it's barely even flat in any area for a wheelchair to be able to use. I'd probably spin out of my wheelchair if I tried to use it. Okay, so we can move on to the next slide. Oh, we've already moved on to the next slide. Okay, sorry. And so these are basically sidewalks, like cracks in the sidewalks that are really, really hard to maneuver around. Like I basically have to go around them every time. And if for some reason I'm not looking and I accidentally go over one of them, it can cause damage to my wheelchair. It can cause injury. Thankfully, it never has for me personally, but again, just these are spots that I avoid. And then you have the curb cut in the bottom left there that is also it's barely recognizable as a curb cut because it's all messed up basically. So another one that I avoid. And the next one there is that's basically is a part of the sidewalks that's raised and causes bumps that are really bad for wheelchairs to go over. So we can move on to the next slide. And more, we have more bumps here on the top left that are just really dangerous, especially if you're not paying a lot of attention while you're traveling in a wheelchair. And then in the top right here, so you see that the driveway that leads onto the sidewalk is extremely unusable for a wheelchair user, and that becomes dangerous in times when I might need to get on the sidewalk in a timely manner. For example, during a snowstorm, let's say I'm riding in the street because of some snow on the sidewalks, and I need to get back on the sidewalk. I wouldn't be able to use that spot because it's just too dangerous, and so I just had to pass by it and continue going in the middle of the street. And then the bottom two here are more curb cuts, and these are both curb cuts that I also avoid because they're cracked up and they're lopsided. If it's lopsided like that, then a wheelchair going down it, there's a danger of you spinning out of control, and especially if you're carrying something like groceries or sometimes I'm carrying my dinner and I'll be riding down a curb cut and I spin out of control and trying not to drop my dinner. These things affect people when they live in this town for we want this to be somewhere that we live permanently, and so I don't want to be running out of control when I'm just trying to get my dinner at night. So we can move on to the next slide. Okay, these are more curb cuts up here at the top. This top one on the left here, that's at the main intersection of Northampton, or of the main intersection of Main Street. And you can see that actually this was one of the first places I went to take a photo because it actually used to be worse. But recently the DPW added a little bit of blacktop asphalt. You can see at the bottom there. It used to be a lot worse. It was a big bump there that if a wheelchair went over it, it was just really not safe. But it's still not looking great, even though they touched it up. It's still steep and uneven and dangerous. And then to the right there on the top, another one that's very steep, and just not easy to use unless you're holding on tight or have a seatbelt on. Um, and then at the two bottom here, you can see the sides of the sidewalks where it's just really torn up. And so if you're trying to if you have to move out of someone's way, you're not going to be able to because there's cracks in the sidewalk that you could crash if you try to go on them. So yeah, these are just spots that I basically mainly try to avoid as much as possible. And so moving on, so basically, so the safety challenges on Main Street are magnified for people with disabilities, mobility impairments, and the elderly. At various points along Main Street, narrow sidewalk widths, uneven or broken sidewalks, and curb ramps and pedestrian signals that don't meet national accessibility standards limit the ability for people to move freely and independently around downtown. So I'd just like to quickly talk a little bit about the ADA Transition Plan, which is it's a document that was created by the Disability Commission before I joined, actually, and it's a list of 10 recommendations on how to bring Northampton closer as possible, closer and closer into ADA compliance, basically. And the number one recommendation is the creation of an ADA coordinator in Northampton, which we have done. And the number two recommendation is the installation of wheelchair curb cuts, fully accessible crosswalks, and the repair of deteriorated walkways. So Picture Main Street is going to bring us much, much closer to this goal, the goal of making Northampton more ADA compliant. And with a sidewalk project of this size, of this magnitude, it's something that we haven't done in this city for more than 40 years. and the urgency of it just cannot be understated. And so basically, yeah, that's what I wanted to say that about the ADA transition plan, and then the wider sidewalks that are going to be happening with Picture Main Street are going to not only will they offer more space for disabled people to maneuver around, they will also make outdoor dining more accessible, because the majority of the outdoor dining on Main Street is not accessible for wheelchair users. Recently, I went to the Dirty Truth with a few friends of mine, and we were planning on eating outside, but we realized that there's a curb there, and there's no way for a wheelchair to get down there into the outdoor dining. And if you were to go out into the street to try to enter it, there's no way to do that either because it's obstructed by the enclosed structure around the outdoor dining. So the wider sidewalks are going to make it so that more and more people are going to be able to use the outdoor dining during the nice weather. And so that's basically to wrap up what my part of the presentation, and just to say how urgent I believe this project is. And I'd like to end it by talking about something called the curb cut effect. The curb cut effect it's a phenomenon in which features or policies that are designed specifically to assist marginalized or disabled individuals end up benefiting society as a whole. And so what this means is that when curb cuts were invented, they were originally created and designed for disabled people. But what happened was, over time, it became known as it's a universally known thing that benefits everyone. So everybody knows accepts curb cuts as something that benefits everyone. So that's called the curb cut effect, because when you make something accessible, it doesn't just help disabled people; it helps everybody. And so I just wanted to end with that. Thank you.
So other components, the mayor raised this in the initial slides, but the pedestrian wait time at signalized intersections on Main Street are also an impediment. Again, sort of reiterating the fact the long wait times at each of the intersections. This is taken from the initial analysis that Tool did for data collection, and the typical, or there's considered a 30-second threshold for waiting time that the typical pedestrian would feel comfortable waiting for a signal to change. And this graph really just shows that all the signals and the timing for pedestrian crossings is much higher than the 30-second threshold. And so their maximum wait times for the pedestrian signal to come on is up to 119 seconds at King and Pleasant Street. And the averages are, again, above sort of the 30-second threshold. And the reason why this is important is not only that pedestrians are waiting, but people tend to get frustrated and just bolt out into the street if they feel like they're waiting too long and the signal should change and they're not sure if it's going to change. And that, of course, contributes to crashes and to incidences in intersections. So we've got a signal timing and a dimension problem at these intersections because it takes so long to wait, and then you've got a long passage across. And so the long time across also is not timed consistent with the actual signal. So you're out, if you're taking longer to get across because you have a mobility device, then that also is a safety hazard for those folks trying to cross. The other thing I wanted to go over, which relates to the separation of bicycle traffic in Main Street, is that in 2023, you all probably are aware that the state passed the Vulnerable Road Users Law, which requires motorists to give at least 4 feet of passage to those who are considered vulnerable road users, which are people with mobility devices, people with strollers, people on bicycles, pedestrians, and so forth, scooters, and any other kind of non-motorized modes of travel. So what this means is that you need some kind of demarcation on Main Street to identify that safe space. And this is all, again, on the frequently asked questions section of the website, but the community has determined that the way to sort of enforce that separation that is now a law is a physical barrier to help further protect the folks from errant vehicles.
Point of information.
Who are
Not right now. Point of information. Wait, you're.
How did the community determine that?
So here.
Wait, that's not how we're going to go over point of informations on Thursday, because that's not a use of point of information. That's for a logistical it's an interruptible, and we can talk about it more on Thursday, but that's not.
No. Thank you. And just so we're here in the moment, and part of me is that once we're done with the presentation, we are going to allow questions from the counselors. We're going to first go to the community resources, because this is our meeting, and then I'll move to the other counselors, and I'll discuss how that goes as well. The presentation.
So the physical barrier with a fully separated bike facility would protect vulnerable road users to a much greater extent, because it's a physical barrier between the cars and the pedestrian or the bicycle lane. And it also is consistent with our Complete Streets policy and design manual. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the proposed conditions in the design. First, I want to talk about the crosswalks being narrowed significantly. So just two examples, but all the crosswalks are narrowed with curb extensions or bump outs. For example, the Rainbow Crosswalk would drop from a 90-foot cross-section to 41 feet. City Hall Crosswalk would drop from 65 to about 30 feet. And I've just shown in here sort of that can be accomplished by pulling the curbs in and narrowing the street initially, but then also creating curb extensions. So this graphic on the lower left shows the differences that curb bump outs can create in terms of pedestrian and other road users. So on the left, cars coming to a crosswalk really cannot see around parked cars for people who are waiting to cross. Whereas if you have a curb extension, the whole idea is then you're putting the pedestrian out in a space that's visible but still safe because you're behind a curb. This middle photograph is actually an example of how far out, and I think this was also in Amy's video, how far out these pedestrians are walking before they're stopping and looking for oncoming traffic, because they cannot see cars beyond the parked cars. So these pedestrians here have moved off the curb this far and then have stopped. So they are fully exposed in the road there for vehicles that are coming around this corner from Center Street onto Main Street. So that's the kind of pulling in the curbs that will both reduce the time for people to cross safely, but also make them more visible. And then this photograph on the right really just shows how a separated bike facility and a sidewalk work together at a curb bump out. So pedestrians who are crossing can see oncoming bicycle traffic or vehicles in the bicycle lane, and then cross over to the curb extension and then be visible to cars. Other proposed conditions, fully ADA compliant bus stops for loading and unloading. And this eliminates conflicts with pedestrians who are continuing on the sidewalk. So in the right, there's a photo of a similar situation that is designed for Main Street, where you've got a full length of tactile warning pads on the sidewalk section over here and a crosswalk. So pedestrians who are crossing over to this bus stop, this sort of on an island, then can see cyclists coming, but it's then people who are waiting for the bus are in sort of this separate area, so that then pedestrians through pedestrians who are walking on the sidewalk aren't in the same location as people who are standing and waiting for buses. So that's how that function works. The other piece about narrowing, by pulling the curbs in, you're narrowing the traveled way, which significantly slows traffic. And through slowing traffic, because you've got less space to zip through effectively, it widens your ability, your peripheral vision, because you're going more slowly, so you can see more of the activity on both sides of the street. And that's really just what these photos on the left show. Sort of in the upper photo, when you're traveling at faster speeds, your ability to perceive all the other activity that's going on in front of you is much narrowed. Whereas if you're going more slowly, the lower photo shows your perception is, and your peripheral vision is clearer and wider. And then this photo in the middle really sort of also illustrates from a vehicle standpoint, same intersection, cars have to creep across this crosswalk and continue traveling. If they were making a left or a right onto Main Street here, you would not otherwise be able to see cyclists coming in the travel lane behind these parked cars. So you're really sort of moving out in this direction, and cars cannot see vehicles as well coming at this wide, expansive intersection. This also sort of shows how if you're in a vehicle and we have a new separated bike facility next to the sidewalk, that the driver will be able to see both of those modes of travel in those separated lanes there. Additionally, changes proposed include the leading pedestrian interval signals at all of these intersections. And Federal Highway has shown that there's 13% reduction in vehicle and pedestrian crashes with such signalization changes. It increases the visibility of crossing pedestrians and provides that ability for those pedestrians and people and mobility devices to start crossing before the vehicular traffic begins. So they are present and more visible in the intersection by the time the cars get the green light to go. And so there's the reduction in crashes is because there's increased likelihood of motorists to see the pedestrians and then be able to yield to them. And also provides a sort of a jump start for those who may be a little bit slower in getting across that expanse of the intersection. In addition, conditions include additional seating areas and wider sidewalks that allow people to stroll or roll side by side. The sidewalks would be widened 6 to 35 feet, and Councilor Dubs noted the ability to then be able to enjoy outdoor dining because there's more space to accommodate those functions. And there is ability for people who want to rest and sort of pull over to the furnishing zone to be completely out of the through travel way on the sidewalks. In addition, the sidewalk changes will result in 8 additional doorways on Main Street being accessible, at least at the entrances, or they'll be barrier-free. And that is because the sidewalks there'll be a split sidewalk similar to what already exists at the corner of Center and Main Street, where it will ramp back down to the sidewalk. So there'll be an area for pedestrians who don't have mobility devices to continue on the sidewalk, and then a ramp will come up to sort of make that barrier-free access to those doors. And a new location for that would be located at where this photo is taken, down at the lower end of, or at the intersection of Pleasant and Main Street, where the former 10,000 Villages is, and those 3 storefronts would also be barrier-free. The other piece, there's some little sort of half step granite steps on the sidewalk that in another location that is actually in the path of one of these ramped sidewalks that would become flush. And so that wouldn't be sort of a trip or a rolling hazard as Councillor Dubs has described as problematic. So want to talk a little bit about concerns and questions raised. We've heard the concern about less parking and concern for accessibility, and we want to emphasize again that placards are allowed in any parking space. So we're not only are we adding parking specifically designated accessible spaces, but we just want to emphasize that people with placards can park in any space. Those will continue to be allowed that way. We've also already made parking management modifications to encourage turnover on Main Street, and we've seen the benefits of that and the outcome of that. And want to emphasize that the total number of parking spaces removed is the same as the number of spaces that come offline during the summer for the last several years since COVID. For outdoor dining, the same number of spaces will be changed in the future condition. In terms of parking space type, you heard this from Amy in her video that it's a really individual preference between parallel and angled accessible parking. And so different people have different feelings of comfort about that. But we want to emphasize that with the new accessible parking spaces, we've added essentially real estate to allow mobility in and around the parked vehicles in those accessible spots. So just zooming in here, this picture on the lower right shows two types of accessible parking spaces, which are designed in the plans. The one here on the top part of this graphic shows a parallel parking space, with a specific ramp that leads. There's extra space behind that parking space with a tactile warning ramp and a path up to the sidewalk and the crosswalk to the main sidewalk. In the lower graphic as well, there's additional space and specific tactile warning ramps next to those angled parking spaces. So in both scenarios, there'll be much more dedicated space to ensure that those folks coming out of those vehicles have a direct path to the sidewalk. And then just finally, we talked already about the bus stops, but questions were raised about, whether or not there would be conflicts with pedestrians and people waiting for bus stops. This is sort of the standard practice now with bus stops and accessibility. And again, another graphic of sort of how that would function. Again, sort of looking at bike lane and questions about safety with those with mobility issues. We talked about the separated bike facility, and this photo on the right sort of shows the separation there. In the Main Street design, this bike lane is going to be slightly elevated. So again, not only will it be separated from the parked vehicles and the sidewalk lane, but it's going to be a little bit higher. So visibility with cars traveling in the travelway will be better because of that slight elevation. There's also a buffer between the parked cars and the bike lane. So I think a concern was raised about doors and parked cars. And of course, now without a separated bike facility, the bikes are in the street, and that's a real hazard now with parked cars, parallel parked, where cyclists are riding in the street. I just wanted to note that distracted driving makes up 40% of all crashes on Main Street. And so striped lanes aren't as protective as a physical barrier. And we've, I think, had increased concerns about all the different distractions that are that people have access to that are taking their eyes off the street. And so this is another measure to protect those vulnerable road users. There's also been ongoing discussions, not just in Northampton, but the Commonwealth and throughout the country about the proliferation of new and a variety of e-bikes and different classes of e-bikes. And that's certainly something that the city is working on and the Commonwealth is actually working on. And so that doesn't go away with this design. I think no matter what design you have, we need to make sure that we understand what the risks are for each of these different classes and that we respond appropriately with the right level of regulation. So we're well aware of that, and we'll continue to watch and work with the new regulations that might be coming down from the state on that. And just to leave on the bike safety note that federal highway research shows that separated bike lanes are expected to reduce crash rates by approximately 50% over conventional
Out of order.
lanes. Okay, so I will hand it over to the mayor for the next section.
Okay. And again, thank you to Councilor Debs for collaborating with us. Anything else you want to add before we move on to the next section?
Not necessarily. Just mainly that my goal, or hopefully our shared goal for this project is that there's going to continue to be division on this issue, but my hope is that we can at least become closer to becoming unified, at least on this issue of accessibility and how greatly accessibility is going to be improved by Picture Main Street. So just wanted to say that. Okay.
Great. Thank you. And thanks for sharing your perspective. Okay, so moving on to updates and costs. Let's get into it. So we are on track to submit 100% design to MassDOT next month in June. We have worked with Eversource to address the conflicts of design for which we did those test puts that you've heard about, and including the additional costs that were triggered by these conflicts. So I just want to say I really appreciate their collaboration with us and how quickly they've helped us move through this issue. They have been very cooperative. So thank you to them for addressing that conflict. And this summer, there's going to be and showcase the design. So Tool will be developing one or two public sessions to showcase the design this summer of the 100% design. So look for that, dates to come, but those will be public meetings that we hope people will come to. We anticipate the right-of-way process to begin late fall of 2026, and those right-of-way agreements are anticipated in spring of 27. And then we'll finalize plan specifications and estimates and other bid documents by spring of 27 for bidding in summer of 2027. And then the contractor will be mobilized on MassDOT's schedule after that point because it moves over to their schedule. So that is where we are in terms of updates. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, so our total expenditures to date for current project design costs since the beginning in 2019. So this project had been talked about long before, but 2019 is when we engaged Tool. To the present is $4 million, about $4 million. Typical design costs for a very large, complex construction project that affects multiple utilities tends to range from about 10 to 20% of those costs. So the numbers you see below are rounded, and the sources of those funds have been state funding. So $2 million from Chapter 90, a bond bill, smart growth, and shared streets. $1 million in federal funding from ARPA, and
out of order.
Chris.
$250,000 from local CIP funding, and 600,000 in local traffic mitigation. So those are projects that are required to pay for their impact on the network, pay into a local traffic mitigation fund. $100,000 from the water and sewer enterprise, and 77,000 of local CPA, and that was for the design of the park in front of First Churches. So that's where we are on design. Moving on to anticipated future costs. So anticipated future 7.8 million, project specifications and estimates and bidding docs for non-participating costs. So you've heard a lot about those. Those are water and any sewer, fiber conduit, park furnishings, some of the street furniture, not all of it, but some, parking wayfinding signs, and a portion of the vaults. But not all of them. So those are non-participating. Then right-of-way acquisition, that's for the geometric shapes we'll need to connect the sidewalk to the building faces. Generally sort of slivers of space between those two that need to marry those two. And construction administration. So a conduit between the MassDOT administrative person and the city to ensure that the interests of the design are being met, and administration on utilities. And so the sources you see there, so that's 3.1 million in federal ARPA that has already been appropriated for water line replacement. And then the remainder of the cost will be funded through a combination of Chapter 90, so that's state Chapter 90 funding, and water enterprise. So that's local restricted water enterprise. Moving on. So $8.8 million has already been spent or allocated. And of that 8.8 million, 3.4 million has come from local restricted funds. So that includes enterprise, CIP, a little bit of CPA, and traffic mitigation. So those are funds that can't be used for other uses. And 5.4 million includes ARPA and Chapter 90. ARPA again being that 3.1 million of that. So all told, 11.8 million, and we've already allocated or spent 8.8 million of that. And the anticipated remainder will come from Chapter 90 and a little bit from CIP, hopefully for fiber conduit. But the rest would be Chapter 90. So that's, again, state highway money. So when this project goes to construction, it represents a $31.5 million state and federal infusion of funds, in addition to what has just been on those previous slides. And that is the projected MassDOT tip allocation for this project. So we spend about $11.8 million to get a $31.5 million state and federal allocation flowing into Northampton, which is a pretty remarkable return on investment for that investment that we are making. And then, so now this next slide, and I know it's a lot of information on here. This shows, and we heard people ask about this, this shows what the cost to the city would be if we just did the paving, sidewalks, water and sewer, and some curb extensions. So things that I hope we can all agree have to be done. You've seen the condition of those. But this doesn't include many of the improvements, some of which we have covered this evening, but also others that we haven't really talked about. So this is just on the right, just doing those repairs and those replacements that we would need to do. We cannot do the repaving of the street. We cannot reconstruct the sidewalk without impacting other things like the underground infrastructure. So Carolyn, you are going to walk us through this chart.
So we've looked at the tip process, which is what we're in now, which would result in $31.5 million of investment from state and federal funding for the amount of money that we would apply for from the city side. And those investments, so we talked about some of these in detail and others, just running through quickly the bullet list. So that would entail new wider sidewalks, accessible cross slopes across the sidewalk. So the regrading of those sidewalks, new pavement on narrower and safer streets, expanded accessibility to doorways, accessible crosswalks, shortened with curb extensions, expanded outdoor dining and outdoor retail options, improved safety for all, including separated bike lanes and slower traffic, new traffic signals and turning lanes for all turns, new plazas and gathering space, street lights that will be dimmable to 50% and at crosswalks, targeted at those crosswalks where we don't currently have lighted areas in all cases. It would increase the tree canopy significantly by adding 36 trees to the existing locations and also improve the planting medium in which those trees would be planted and have better long-term feasible growing space. New drainage along with green infrastructure and new water and some sewer lines. It would also create dedicated delivery and loading zones, which we do not have now. And those loading zones would also flex to be additional parking spaces in the non-loading specified times. If we were just to do the local project, just repaving, as the mayor and as others have said that, well, we need to do that. We know we need to do sidewalks. That project would result in maintaining the sidewalk and the street width with just repouring sidewalks, new pavement, but the same width again, no grade changes. There would be a minimal for slopes, but the crosswalk pads would not be at slopes that would meet ADA compliance because you really have to regrade the whole sidewalk down to the crosswalk or the ramp that goes to the crosswalk. And then that, of course, requires regrading the entire sidewalk length and width. It would not result in expanded dining or retail, and curb extensions could be done at selected crossings, striped bike lanes only. Again, no accessible crosswalks improvements on the south side, so you'd still have those cants or slopes by Crafts Avenue and Old South Street. No new traffic signals and therefore no intersection modifications there. There would be no new gathering or plaza spaces or improvements as designed in front of First Churches for a new park or redesigned park, and no additional trees or improved growing area. So all the trees would still need to be replaced because when you're pulling up sidewalks, you're going to affect those tight boxes in which the planter boxes that are there now, which are fully compacted and completely essentially root bound. So those trees would just be replaced in their location. Water would be replaced, some sewer, and then some drain lines, but certainly no green infrastructure. That scenario would also not be in compliance with our Complete Streets Ordinance. And as I mentioned, there would be significantly fewer ADA compliant upgrades in the sidewalks. So because we'd still have to do a design for even that piece, there's a significant design cost. There's significantly more construction administration. There's still the cost of concrete and some curb changes, and of course pavement and striping, tree replacement. And so by using the numbers that we have been using for MassDOT for the what's referred to as the construction quantities, the estimate is around almost $24 million for just that piece without all the other improvements. And of course, we have the same 4.2 million sort of allocated or spent for this that side of the equation because we have the ARPA funding set aside for the water lines and water enterprise funding. And so that's sort of the calculation of the various costs. And that is the end of the presentation.
Yay. Well, thank you for the very thorough presentation that happened here. And just so folks know, Northampton Open Media has alerted me that they've queued up the section with the video at the top of this. So anyone who wants to see it will be able to access that portion immediately. So huzzah, we're still working together. Now, as we move on, though, I want to remind everyone here that this is community resources, and each subcommittee is allowed to have their own forms of conduct. And I'm thankful that my other counselors are here as guests for this meeting. But just so you know, in community resources, we kind of established that we're a little more laid back, we're respectful, and we're mindful of not only the other members here, but the people we invite here to present, as well as our neighbors and people in the public who come to visit us. And so with that being said, the way we're going to move forward with our questions is I'm going to turn to my fellow community resource members to ask questions first, and then I'll turn it over to the rest of the council, and we'll have a nice little back and forth. So with that being said, does anyone on community resources have any questions? Lori.
Well, first I want to say I'm exhausted by that presentation. That was really amazing. And I'm just going to, and you can tell me if I'm asking a question that's out of line because it's not on the agenda. So some of these things came up when people were talking, but my first question is the Eversource situation. You said they've been cooperative. Does that mean that we're not paying for that mistake?
Correct. They have agreed to pay for anything that resulted from their their issue.
Okay. You kind of danced around that, so yeah.
No,
well, it wasn't
and
clear to me.
I give them great credit.
Okay.
We had productive conversations, and I'm very thankful that they have come and actually just right before this meeting have shared with us that they took our estimate and will be covering it.
Oh, great. That's great. I just have a few more questions, and some of them are quick, but will the 100% design be on the website?
Yes.
Accessible to all?
Ultimately, so what we, and I don't know if the process stands, but basically once it gets submitted to MassDOT typically wants to review it before it becomes public because they may ask for modifications. So there's this whole process where we go through comment resolution is what they refer to it as. And so, as soon as we are able, we will absolutely post it.
Okay. And will this slideshow also be on the city website? The slideshow we saw today?
You can put it on the picture, Main Street.
Yes. Yes. Great. And then my next question is about trial run because really hearing about all the accessibility stuff kind of brought home to me that there's no way there could be a trial run because you can't, make things accessible temporarily. You know what I mean? So how does I think this is relevant to this presentation, but it just seems to me that, okay, this is kind of a comment, but I guess it just seems to me that the accessibility issues can't be faked or whatever. I mean, so can you comment on that?
Sure, I would agree, and then I'll pass it down the line because I'm sure we all have thoughts on this. But I mean, this is a really complicated project with many intersections, and you got to see a lot of photos of how problematic those intersections are and those sort of transition spaces are. So, first of all, none of these things that are in this project are being done for the first time. So they have been tested elsewhere, and there are lots of aspects to this project that you can't put up some cones or try out without making an even less safe situation. So to do like a really accurate test would actually cost a remarkable amount of money. I'm not sure how we would estimate that, but I'm happy to grab that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has been answered for a long time, and it's on the website as well, that all the pieces fit together in a puzzle, and you can't just do a little piece and say, okay, that works. The other thing to keep in mind is we have examples of the kinds of modifications that that are designed for Main Street already in the community. So we have separated bike lanes. We have, curb extensions and narrow crosswalks. And we have 2-lane cross sections. Lower Pleasant Street, as a matter of fact, has higher traffic volumes than the upper end of Main Street, and it operates with 1 lane in each direction and a turn lane. So we already have many of these. And of course, the idea of, we talked about this already, the parking, the modification in the number of parking spaces already happens or has been happening every summer. So.
Sure, just maybe something that might be helpful. I think that, there's a lot of pieces to this project, and one of the biggest pieces is signals, traffic signals, and how those signals are programmed and how they are timed. So I think you just have to think about how we're collecting data. So if we were to set up cones or set up tape, which certainly has been done before, may we recall that. We could narrow travel lanes, we could convert parking spaces, we could simulate curb extensions. But if you are not impacting the timing of the traffic signals, if you are not allowing those signals to flow the way they are going to flow when the project is complete, the data that you get back from your trial run is not going to be helpful in showing the community what the full impact of the project is going to be. And so that, I think, can in and of itself be misleading. If you wanted to create a scenario where it's like, okay, we're going to practice parallel parking on Main Street, I don't know what sort of, I'm not sure how helpful that would be.
Just go to Lower Main.
Yeah, go to Lower Main. Well, in Upper Main, we have parallel parking as well. So.
Thank you. That was really helpful. And the only other thing I want to say is I really appreciated your presentation, Counselor Dubs. It was super enlightening. So thank you.
Aileen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I was particularly made an impact on me that you didn't just have 4 slides of the curb cuts. They went on and on and on and on, and it's unacceptable. So thank you very much. You feel like you're enlightened and you're not fully enlightened. So thank you. I have 2 questions, at least so far. There was something came up about consulting the disability community directly and whether or not that had been done. And I was wondering what the process for that was or wasn't. Surely it wasn't just you, right? So.
Oh, sure. Could I answer that?
Sure.
Or I
Anybody.
could begin to answer it. Yeah, so about 6 years ago, I might have the timing wrong, 5 or 6 years ago, before I was counselor, but I was on the Disability Commission. It was the beginning of the early stages of Picture Main Street, and we did a tour of Picture Main Street with the Disability Commission members. So we all went out onto Main Street and did a tour with you, right? Yeah, you were there. I think it was before you were mayor. Yeah, yeah. So we've been talking about this for a while on the Disability Commission.
My other question, because I've gotten it, I'm in Ward 5, and are those bump outs that make the crosswalk shorter? Is that the same structure that's up in Florence Center by like the Cumberland Farms? Is that the same type of thing? Do you know what I mean?
It's similar, but it's not.
The same purpose?
It has the same purpose, but in Main Street, because we're doing the entire street, it's sort of feathered back. And so in the design, for example, we'll have parking coming up against sort of a more gradual curb extension. And that was done in Florence Center because of one particular project that had to address traffic mitigation. And so they weren't working with the entire street to pull back on the entire street.
Just that one spot.
Yeah.
Because, so I guess I would submit that one thing, some feedback that I get about that structure, even though it sounds like it's somewhat different, is that drivers have trouble, I'm quoting, seeing it and crashing into it and blowing out their tires on it. And I'm wondering, can they be painted so that, I'm just putting it out there. Could painted lights, a sign saying yoo-hoo, this is sticking out right here, anything like that. It's a or slow down. It's just, it's a slowing. I was thinking this is a traffic calming feature. So people will have to get used to it and know, oh yeah, there's that thing. But I'm just saying that some folks have said, could you remind me that it's here while I'm driving down the street? So thank you.
Thank you. Gwen, I saw you had your hand up. Are you?
Yes, okay. So I am wondering, so as somebody who is extremely short in my life, yeah, it's like somewhere around 4'10". I had wondered how much height, I suppose height would be considered if somebody is in a mobility device, but it would also be considered in terms of children and people who are really short and can't see around corners, or maybe they can't be seen. So I guess that was one thing I was thinking that I've always thought of since I moved here to Northampton, because I've never actually seen a main street with like the kind of parking that is here. And since I moved here, I actually have never parked in those spaces because they make me really nervous when I'm backing out. It also makes me really nervous to cross Main Street as a small person when I'm coming out. And so exactly as was presented tonight, I have to go all the way out to into the road pretty much to be able to cross the crosswalk. And then I am wondering, I'm trying to sort of formulate my questions because I guess I could have so many, but my question is it true that if this wasn't being done, that ARPA money could be used for the schools?
No. So ARPA is one-time federal money. And so some of it was taken in as lost revenue, which means it then went to free cash, which took it out of that sort of timeline that it needed to be spent in, but it's still federal one-time funds. They're not recurring funds you could rely on for operations.
Okay, thank you. And then I have another question. Is it true that Chapter 90 funding could be used instead for the schools?
No. So just like Chapter 70, which is state aid for schools, can only be used for schools, Chapter 90 can only be used for roadway. And Donna, I don't know if you have, if you can talk more about Chapter 90 and its restrictions, but the answer, no.
Yep, Chapter 90 can be used for roads, bridges, and any associated work, roadway striping, crack sealing, those sorts of things.
Okay, thank you. And do you think that it's true that it's possible that the Picture Main Street project is a racist project? And I will ask that question to Councilor Perry, because he is the person of color in the room.
I am uncertain where the question stems from. I don't have an answer. As while I am the only African American elected here, we're not a monolith. I don't speak for everyone. And again, I don't understand what the question entails, what part of the picture Main Street is, as we've heard here, a very large project that has happened over decades with a lot of input. And so I don't feel comfortable giving an answer to that because I don't know where to begin or where the pieces fit. So, I mean,
Okay, thank you.
also now my face is going to be memed up for my shock. So go have a field day. Any other questions, Gwen? Um, okay. So I'm going to keep my question short, which is hard for me. But again, I want to thank everybody for their presentations. One thing I want to say, I've said this before, Counselor Dubs. Actually, I'm just going to call you Jeremy because we call people first names here. So Jeremy, is that I continue to gain insight about your lived experience. As Aileen said, it is eye-opening to see the pictures and then realize how you have to navigate through spaces. And you show pictures during the day. This is not, we're not even talking about nighttime or if it's pitch black or dark. And so that is another thing. And so for me, when we talk about accessibility, we've talked a lot about mobility issues, but I've also think about other people with other disabilities. So visually impaired disabilities, auditory disabilities. And so I'm wondering if there's anything happening in the project that kind of help folks navigate these new streetways. As again, there's patterns that people learn. So if anyone wants to address that. Sure, Gwen, what you got?
I don't know if you said it because I got a little distracted there for a minute, but I guess I want to add to that. So people with attentional things, and so if that's something that goes into the design. Thanks.
I guess I'll start off with a tactile warning pads, which are otherwise referred to as truncated domes, but we know them as really horrible plastic pads that have these bumps that get scraped off after a couple of years and just sort of crack and fall apart. But those are for people with visual impairments. And there are a lot more of those that are being added to not only the crosswalk ramps, but also along the bus stop areas to identify when there's going to be a break from the sidewalk into another space. And to differentiate between the sidewalk and the bike lane. But one of the things that we've specified in this plan, and it's my understanding MassDOT may be moving towards this anyway, is that we would have cast iron or steel plates that will not break down like the yellow plastic pads. And so those will be, in place for the long term. And, we won't just have brand new shiny yellow plastic for a year and then they'll be broken up. So that's a huge improvement because you can see out there now, many of them are just pretty smooth at this point. In terms of audible sensors, I don't know, you might be able to speak more to the new crosswalk technology, but all of the signals will have the required, most up-to-date, compliant technology. So if it's visual as well as audible, and I'm not sure what the status of that is. I don't know if you can speak to that at all. Signals. Okay.
Thank you. And there's one other thing I just wanted to note. People did talk about having the plans accessible online, and I think it's an interesting use of the word accessible. It's a double entendre. It's what I really like about being a rapper. But I think accessibility in that sense is just being able to quickly look at things. But that question and thought again made me think about how people with disabilities also access that information and making sure that again these are big changes, lifetime changes, the way that people move around. So just being really aware of how we present that information for people of every ability.
So, like, spoiler alert for Thursday. But so one of the things that I mentioned briefly in the budget is that there's a mandate that we have to have all of our online resources be ADA compliant, and anything that we upload be accessible. So that is something that we are working on in general, but we will make sure that the plans are in an easy to find place and that they meet all the requirements.
Thank you. Gwen.
Okay, this is kind of like a more, okay. So I have a question. You guys talked about adding things to the bus stops or improving the bus stops, which I remember when my predecessor, Councilor Moulton and Councilor Jarrett, went about and they sort of like repaired the bus stops, put them back kind of where they had been, or sort of like, made them so that it's more clear where these stops are. And so I was wondering, in some of the bus stop work that would be done, if PVTA would be involved financially within any of that work, or if it's like kind of like all in one, and because I assume those are PVTA stops.
We have collaborated with PVTA on the changes, but the design, it's all wrapped into the design. So the design of the location, of the layout, and all of that is part of the design package. And all of the infrastructure, the pieces, the furnishings, the shelters, and those kinds of things, that will be part of the MassDOT funded piece of the construction.
Okay, thank you so much.
Now I'm going to look over here to my friends to the left. Swivel over here. Hey, counselors. Oh, I see a couple people have their hands up. So I'm going to go hand, and then Chris. So Rachel. Oh, we'll just go down the line.
Probably good. Yeah, I'm just looking over questions that were asked during public comment. A lot of them, we've gotten some answers on those. I had a question about the slides. So just so we're on the same page. City costs. When you say city costs, you're talking general operating budget? Yeah.
No, not general fund costs. So that's why we went through on the, hold on.
Well, there's enterprise. I saw the enterprise.
Hold on, gotta make it bigger.
I think it was one of the last ones.
So starting with the design, right? So there's chapter 90,
right.
A part of a bond bill, smart growth, shared streets. There's ARPA, so federal ARPA. There's a little bit of CIP from for roads and traffic mitigation and water sewer enterprise, and then 77,000 from CPA. I'm sorry, from CPA for that design of the park in front of First Churches. So that's the design. So those are. So none of that is not like the budget book that you all got. That's not what we're talking about. And then the other one, the anticipated pre-construction construction. So that's ARPA again, chapter 90, so state, and then water enterprise, so restricted local funds, but not coming out of like other department budgets.
Right. It was just a comparison, if I could clarify, that comparison of like without Pitcher Main Street or with.
Oh, sorry.
It said city costs, and then compared to city costs. And I just wanted to be really clear on what that definition was.
So you mean that's side by side?
Yeah. And then you had because that was a pretty dramatic difference in city costs.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure I understood what the definition of city costs was in that scenario.
So I was going to say that on the non-tip side, if it were a totally just local project, that money has not been allocated. So it's unknown. So if the city were to go down that path, then the city would have to determine how you pay for that. So 4.2 of that 23 million. But other than that, it's it's unclear.
Okay. So, all right, I'm going to move on and maybe just because I want to address some stuff. The snow removal has come up again, and the ambulance accessibility, those were brought up. I'm just throwing some stuff out that was said in public comment. And the water drainage being an issue for accessibility. And so if maybe that's too many things, those are three things, but because they keep coming up, I thought we could address them.
Sure, I can speak to the snow removal. So the way we plow snow on 160 miles of roadway is we push the snow to the curb. That's what we do everywhere, except for downtown. The reason we don't do it downtown, we push it to the center, is because we then have to mobilize a snow removal operation. We do not want to block in the sidewalks and impede businesses by pushing to the curb downtown. So everyone says, well, where are you going to put the snow? The answer is once this is built, we push it to the curb. The way we push it to the curb everywhere. It's a whole different layout on Main Street now, though. It's not the layout like you have now. Then we will mobilize our snow removal operation, same way we mobilize our snow removal operation now. We will remove the snow that is against the curb, same way we do in Florence, the same way we do on any of the side streets where emergency vehicle access is problematic. I don't think I'm in a position to speak for the fire department, so I'll skip that. But I can speak a little bit about stormwater because I think that's been a topic of conversation. So Main Street in general is high in elevation. And then there's obviously the low point under the bridge by Market Street and Holly Street. There is very limited current stormwater infrastructure on Main Street. It's actually quite limited. The issue that we have managing the stormwater underneath the bridge is actually the ability for it to move through the storm drain. The grate actually limits the amount of water that can go into the system. This project will add inlets, and it will help us to manage the sheet flow on Main Street in a way that is not currently being managed. But it's important to understand that the stormwater system is a network. It is not like a discrete unit where you just upgrade Main Street and suddenly like everything is okay. It is part of a larger network, and there are bottlenecks within that network that have absolutely nothing to do with this project. So it doesn't matter how robust the infrastructure is that you create in one place if the receiving utility cannot take the stormwater that you are putting into the system. So that's just a really important distinction. When we talk about our utilities, everything is a network. So this project is being designed. We understand the limitations of the network. We are seeking to manage as much of the stormwater as we can by adding appropriate infrastructure. But in general, there are bottlenecks in this system that are beyond our ability to afford fixes to.
I'll just add to that is just there will also be areas of green infrastructure, and there's more pervious surface in the end anyway. So that will provide some services for stormwater. And we are required to meet the MassDOT standards of the meeting the NOAA 14, updates for the pipe sizing. But again, as we do each of these projects, we upgrade them, but it's only going to be, as Donna said, as much as it gets to the next point in the system where there might be a bottleneck. Right, and MassDOT is covering the stormwater drainage piece of that, and that's why we have to design to their standards.
Thank you. And I just want to, again, the same kind of overview that I gave people before public comment, I'll remind all the counselors, because I know we have so many questions, that it would be really nice, just due to time, that we just really stay focused on kind of what was presented here. because we are going to break this up. I want to know more about the green infrastructure, trees, how that works with the DPW. Doesn't mean I'm not excited to hear about it or ask questions. I just think the best use of our time now would be that. But with that being said, Debbie.
Thank you. Yeah, so I want to thank Jeremy for the presentation, and it was kind of horrifying to see what you have to deal with on a daily basis. And, but you're a pro at this, using a wheelchair. I kind of picture in your head, you have a map of every intersection and every crack throughout downtown. Someone like Amy, who's new to using a wheelchair, I mean, I don't know how she does it. It's, and our aging population too, they gradually, some people do become a little more disabled as time goes on, or you have some kind of knee injury where you have to use crutches for a while. Those people are just kind of thrown into having to deal with what you deal with on a daily basis. So, I can't say enough about how glad I am that this is being done and all the access issues are being addressed. And anybody who is against it, just hearing what you see in Amy's video, I kind of don't know what to say. Yeah, so just with the financial part of it, if we did it ourselves, we don't know where the money would come from, so this would probably be put off a few more years till we figure all that out and get a new plan, and we wouldn't have so much of the wonderful things that are involved in this project. So, it's a no-brainer. The whole project is, it needs to be done, and it's going to be beautiful. So, Mayor, do you just, you can go ahead.
I would just one point, and to that point, as we just said, the stormwater improvements are being funded by MassDOT. So we would have to fund those ourselves, and our stormwater enterprise doesn't have the capacity for those additions.
And it could likely cost way more than the 23 or 25 million when we get it all figured out, and adding, the delay too. And also around West Street and Elm in my ward, the little tiny piece that's part of this, that's all going to be sorted out with the lights. And I don't even like to walk, in that little area. So I'm really glad. And so many constituents, have a hard time there. And it's just kind of crazy with all the different turns, and people don't know what to do. So I'm really glad that's going to be taken care of too. And then the next one over on South Street as well is needs some attention.
My sincere apologies for not giving Ward 2 a shout out when I gave Ward 3 a shout out. I'm sorry.
Next time. You have a lot of Ward 2 people here too, so it's you got to remember us. Okay, I think that's that's all I have to say tonight.
Meg, have at thee.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Counselor Dubs. It was really gorgeous to be able to watch around with you. But it also, of course, raised the question of how Main Street came to be so decimated and why we don't have painted lines now and crosswalks, which is something that's come up before. I would like to ask a question about the Chapter 90 money. And that is, it's a substantial amount of money that will go into this project, but we also have residents who are pretty consistently worried about road repair in the city. So the Chapter 90 money goes to road repair. It's one big use that the state allows us to use it for. And it's a balance, I'm sure, in trying to figure out the two of them. But when you look at the amount of money that's going to Picture Main Street, I know it's a difficult figure to pull out of a hat, but given what you've estimated, Director LaScalia, on what it costs to repave roads, and that's not for the complete milling, just for the repaving, which is, I think, what we've heard from a lot of residents. How long would that money take us? How far would it take us? And I'm not asking for a one or the other, but that is a consistent question that comes up for folks. My street needs to be repaved. I don't know when it's going to happen. And you've given us some estimates that could take it for 10 years really to get through primary parts of the city.
So more than 50% of the city's roadways are in need of a reclaim, which is a base rehabilitation of the roadway. So I think it's a balancing act around how we use Chapter 90 and how we use local appropriation. And by local appropriation, I mean money that comes into the DPW's operating budget by way of OOM into our highways division, and also by way of bonding for paving improvements and for sidewalk improvements every year. The needs that we have far exceed the resources that we have. So the question is, how do we make these decisions? I think that's, probably the question that everybody sitting up here hears more than everything. And the answer is that we have to prioritize first of all, safety first. If we have a problem like, sinkholes or dangerous utility situation, like a water line that blows out. We had some events on Winter Street a few years ago that folks may remember. I've talked about that at council before. So those are examples of dangerous situations that must be addressed immediately. So those rise to the top of the list. Next is main arterial. And we have gone through many of the main arterials in the city, and we have repaved them. We have resurfaced them, and over the past like 6 or 7 years. And Main Street falls into that category. So, the short answer to your question is that, this is probably the single most traffic thoroughfare in the city, and it makes the most sense for our resources to be steered here. I hope that.
So we've already spent $2 million of Chapter 90 money on this. It says project cost 2019 to present, and it says. It says 2 million state funding, Chapter 90, bond bill, smart growth, shared street. I don't know what the breakdown is of that, but I know we'll be asked this question, so it'd be great to have, some specific details about, it's the balance. So if we spend it on this, what are we not spending it on? And I can foresee that will come back, especially because I think much of the city has been told that in fact there won't be any cost to this. So we've been told there will be the $3.6 million that had been set aside. So it's good to have this information. It's been asked for quite a long time. And it's not a surprise. It's just there. I had a couple more and won't take up a lot of time. One is
Just on the paving real quick. So again, note that Main Street is, has in our calculus of the roads, its condition is at the worst condition. So it's also, as said, a main thoroughfare, and obviously a critical economic driver for our city and for our general fund and operating expenses, to make sure that we have like a very robust and navigable downtown. But it's in remarkably poor shape.
I think all of us are pretty aware of that part of it. And that was a question I wasn't going to ask, but folks would like to see painted lines on the streets before this happens, which presumably the streets would be completed at the final project at the end. And it could take several years before lines are again painted or put in. And people are asking for that safety factor right now in the crosswalks, being able to see where they cross and where they go. So it would be good to, have an answer for that and be able to say that's also factored in somewhere.
So painted lines, you mean crosswalks?
I mean crosswalks. It wouldn't hurt to put down a 2-lane line on Main Street if that's something that people have been asking for.
It's not consistent 2 lanes though. Donna, do you have any answer about crosswalks?
Yeah, the crosswalks will be painted shortly. So we have to wait for overnight temperatures to stabilize, or the paint actually peels right up. So those crosswalks are going to be refreshed, and we'll be restriping the entire city. That's actually out to bid right now. But we're going to hit the crosswalks on Main Street in the meantime. But I can't put that paint down. Like, I know, like, it's 80 degrees today and everyone, so it's like, why isn't this painted? But I can't put that paint down until I have consistent high temperatures, or it's not
gonna go well. I think people are be very happy to hear that. So that's great. And to be kept up in it. And I had one more, just sorry. I guess I wonder why this stuff wasn't in the SIP. I didn't see it in past SIPs and I didn't see it in our current SIP. And I think we did ask, will there be costs addressed to Picture Main Street that we need to consider as we're looking at the capital improvement plans?
It's been in at least 2 of the past SIPs. There have been lines for Picture Main Street. Maybe more?
Yeah, going back a few years. Yeah, but so we don't have, it has been in previous capital improvements plans, but also going forward, sort of, we don't have since we haven't finished 100%, we don't have the total cost. So for example, we know that the MassDOT won't cover the fiber conduits. So that's going to have to probably come through SIP request. But, we want to make sure we know what that number is before it gets submitted.
So just to say that I don't remember seeing anything that said Picture Main Street, and maybe I was looking at the wrong title for it, because sometimes it's confusing about what the nomenclature is as it goes in. But we do estimate on a lot of projects that come in. We know that because they've produced, reprogrammable funds afterwards. It would be great as we move forward to have either a specific line item that addresses, what the source will be that's addressed to this project in the future as we go forward. Thank you so much.
Christopher.
So to echo something my colleague just said that seemed to have been a little bit of confusion, according to the existing conditions in the functional design report, Main Street is in fact 2 lanes in each direction between West Street and King and Pleasant. But what I really wanted to talk about, I'd like to thank Councilor Dubs for reminding us of the sidewalk and curb issues. It's long overdue that we fix those. Morally, we should be fixing them this summer as a distinct project of manageable size, rather than holding the mobility challenged community hostage to sell this grandiose project by asking them to wait additional years when they've already waited far too many. And I'd like to thank Councilor Davis for the question about curb extensions. Curb extensions are exactly what would allow us to have bikes safely visible in a shared right-hand lane, a complete street solution already used on Pleasant Street, while having only 48 feet of crosswalk crossing distance. But there's one more thing we need to do. We need to raise the crosswalks, a widely standard technique which not only improves pedestrian safety, but warns drivers away from hitting curbs, just as it warns them away from hitting people. My question, however, concerns ARPA and the frequent claims of misinformation. The city filed a report with the federal government saying exactly how we used or will use all $21.7 million of ARPA funds. And the feds take it very, very seriously when you tell them one thing and then do another. Contrary to the claim we just heard from the mayor again that there is ARPA money in this project, that report shows that in fact there is none. The revenue lost money we keep falsely being told was allocated to the design and utilities of this project, and many others, was actually spent on, and I quote, Health Department Personnel Services, $548,630. Fire Department Personnel Services, $5,803,146. Health insurance costs, $3,648,224. So my question is, was the report to the federal government false? Or is the claim that those $4.1 million are federal money rather than local tax dollars, which is false?
I'm happy to look at the report that you referred to. I don't know what it refers to.
It came from your office.
Anyone else have any questions? Well, thank you, everyone, for this presentation. And I will say to the public, if there's other information that or questions that you have, feel free to send it to our administrative. Yeah, man.
Is there a schedule of future presentations on the project?
We have not come up with one, but we are talking. I've talked to the council president, and we're talking about just trying to see what happens. Much like talking about the test pits that came up out of the blue. So as we move forward, we'll try and come together with a schedule.
Could we ask folks if they want to send in some ideas for what they'd like to hear?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
There's always, yeah, we're always open.
Councilor Perry, so I've only managed to go back to one SIP, but last year in the SIP, there was a line for DPW, under DPW water for Main Street corridor utility infrastructure.
Thank you.
And again, I haven't gone back farther, but they've been.
With that being said, I will let this other half of the council go. I think that would be nice because we just have a couple things that we need to do here. So,
Stayed too long at the party. Now we're getting kicked out.
you guys get out of here. But I think we might need to, do we need to close out the city council portion?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion. I'll entertain a motion from any of the counselors to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Second. Okay. And thank you.
We have to do a roll call.
Yeah.
Councilor Robbins?
Do we, oh, yes, we do. Do we have to do roll?
No, wait.
No, not for adjourn.
Do we have everyone here?
Everyone's here.
Okay. We could actually do an
voice
vote.
But yes, all in favor of adjourning the city council portion?
Yay.
Yay.
Aye.
Hi.
Yes. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Sydney. Thank you so much, Sydney.
Okay, get out of here. I'm just gonna give a couple, like 3 to 5 minutes for everyone to go out, and then we'll let's take our.
Thanks for having us here.
Oh, thank
Councilor
you.
Berry.
Thank you for coming.
I missed the old roof.
thank you very much for the patience. We don't have much else to do it here, community resources, but I did want us to just kind of reset as a group because it's nice to meet with you all, and I like our vibe. Let's be real. So we're gonna go back to the top of the agenda, and we've got minutes of the previous meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes.
All right, and since everyone's here, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Are there any updates or announcements from committee members? Yes, look at that. There are no items referred to the committee. There's no new business. We will discuss, Gwen and I will talk about what next meeting will be. Hopefully we'll get back to our kind of overall view, but I just wanted to say in that, thank you guys for being flexible to allow this forum to happen in this space. With that being said, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Look at that, we're done. Thanks, everyone.